Much if you've got a big decision coming up. We are live, by the way, guys, as well. If you want to watch, you can now click the link in the bio. Paul has stopped wagging his finger at me. I'm now not in the naughty zone. I'm off the dunce list. And you can now go and click the link in the bio, go to Social Tab. You can watch and listen if you'd like to. No one's got a decision coming up. Okay, cool. So decision-making processes. How do you guys, mods and panelists, give us a flash in the mic, popcorn style. How do you actually make decisions? What is your decision-making process, and how do you then take action? What are the steps? What are the practical and tactical steps that you take once you've made a decision? Flash your mics if you've got something that you can share with us this morning. Who is flashing? Oh, I'm not sure we've had this guy up before. Dylan, coming to you, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm literally driving to the gym, which was a quick decision to make at 11 o'clock at night, realizing I still got energy here and I got to multitask. But
good decision, Dylan.
Yeah, especially after this last year. But for me, making decisions needs to be something quick. The longer that it takes me to make a decision, it usually tells me I'm not excited or passionate about said decision or opportunity. So for me, the quicker I can make a decision to say yes or no, it usually is a good way to read how invested I'm going to be in that opportunity or that next challenge that I'm going to face. So for me, making a quick decision has been one of the keys to my success. And, it just comes down to, thinking on the spot and problem solving in those moments. But, making a quick decision or, when you're thinking about a big decision or a long-term, plan or strategy, I think it's important to realize if you're thinking long-term, you're simply making decisions along the way that are either pushing you towards your long-term goal or they're taking away from your long-term goal, which again allows me to make those quick decisions. So I think it's your mindset that allows you to create a really consistent decision-making process. But I think I've heard a few people even mention it before that if you're like 60%, there, you need to go all in and figure it out, because if you wait for yourself to be 95% sure, you're probably too late. So again, the quicker you can make a decision, usually it'll be a good way to give a read on if this is something you want to commit to and, how much you're actually invested in it. But that's been one of my keys to success, quick decision making.
So are you saying that also if you have a big decision to make, you break it down into smaller decisions so you can make those quicker? So let's say, for example, I know that you're very big within I think it's the dog training space. Let's say, for example, that you did it with, and I'm like layman's terms here, so you have to excuse me, Dylan. Let's say, for example, that you specialized in close protection Doberman dogs, and then you're like, do you know what? Let's bring in a different breed. That would be quite a big decision potentially within your business. But would you make a smaller decision so you can make it quick, or how do you make the bigger long-term decisions if you're wanting to be able to move fast, is what I guess I'm badly asking.
No, for sure. So, I mean, what I was trying to get with the long-term goals is if, for instance, I have a general mission for being a dog trainer. When I consider a big decision, like, do I want to, take on this new opportunity of being on a TV show? Do I want to go on a USA tour? Where do I see myself in terms of a big decision? Well, if I know what my long-term goals are, if I know where my pillars for, what I want to achieve are in line, those decisions don't need to be, I guess, imploded to really think that it's a big decision, because they're really just small steps that you're taking along the way of climbing your mountain or, climbing Everest. So for me, it's the same thing. If you're climbing Everest, do I need to, I guess, have a general plan? But once I'm starting to climb the mountain, you have to think on your feet. You have to make those quick decisions. Where am I going to hold my hands? What steps am I going to take? When it's dark and you can't see, are you going to push forward? But by all means, having that ability to make quick decisions, knowing that I'm climbing a mountain right now, you've already made the decision. The biggest decision of your life sometimes just needs to be made once. And then all those other decisions that you're making are steps along your journey. But I mean, that's the way I look at entrepreneurship. So I've already made some of those big decisions, and now they're just moving me forward in my direction. And it's very easy to see, is this step going to take me in the direction I need, or is it going to take away from all of the movement that I've already progressed in my life, if that makes sense.
Oh, wow. What a powerful quote. Sometimes you only have to make the biggest decision of your life once. I love that. It got me. That was a bit Les Brown for me. I loved it. Thanks for that. And appreciate it. Good. Thank you for sharing. Very much appreciate it. Go and smash your workout. Enjoy. And I hope you get rid of that extra energy so you can get some sleep at some point. Fantastic. Mods and panelists, give us a flash of the mics. If you've got a decision based share, Liza with 2 Z's, please. Over to you, my friend.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'd love a little bit of what Dylan said, right? Because I think that there's a couple of get down to decision maker, especially when you're an entrepreneur. So he actually mentioned it, that finding whatever that goal is for you, that needs to be super key, because what I find is oftentimes people say they want to get somewhere, but when you ask them where there is, they're very unclear of what that actually even means for them. So identifying for yourself, like, okay, what is it that I want to get out of this? Secondly, immediately to his point, not only moving quickly, but identifying for yourself, what are the options, meaning what are the pros, and then what are the realistic consequences. And if you need to, having a separate category for your fears, because oftentimes the fears mask themselves as a negative when really it's you just getting in your own way and sabotaging your progress. So when you're able to really identify those 3 channels, then you can make that decision. Once you make that decision and execute it, boom shakalaka for the win, commit to that. And then from there, you start figuring out, how do I need to adjust? If you think about it with the plane, which will happen later this year to see Ash and the rest of in person. But when I'm flying in that plane, right, my pilot to adjust constantly, even though he knows where we're going, even though he's made the decision for us to take off, it's not just going to be a straight path. So it's that adjusting that where I see people get thrown off, where they start doubting themselves and then they're like, "Ooh, that was wrong. Okay, wait, let me make sure. Maybe I should take it back." And they get smaller instead of getting bigger, right? And so I'll give you a perfect example. When live streaming first came onto the platform, so this was now 6 years ago, and but as we know, Periscope sunsetted last week. But when that actually came on at the time, I was the only female reporter going around the world for Formula E. And they had a huge race in Miami. Sir Richard Branson was the owner of the British team. He had come over, of course, on Virgin Airlines. And I was one of 3 reporters that was going to interview him. So I was super excited. I had my big camera. And then I knew I already had traction on Periscope. I had just launched it at South by. And I thought, as he's walking up to me, oh my gosh, okay, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this on this live stream and also try to record this and go edit it on my YouTube. What I do, what do I do, what I do? I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to actually take a risk. Either I'm going to fail horribly and he's going to make fun of me, or because I know he likes tech, this actually is going to open up other doors for me. So there I was with my little phone case. It was my iPhone with the little Minnie Mouse. It had like the ears on it and everything. And I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So I talked to my audience immediately and I said, hey, do me a walking over and the autograph. I'm like, y'all got to help me out here. You to drop it, because at that point there was about a, when I ask you all to drop it, please drop it so he can see it in quote unquote real time. So he comes over and his team comes over. And if you've ever been around him, you know, he has a couple of different members on your team and they're like, okay, Liza, he's ready for the interview. I had my mic plugged into my phone. I was like, yeah, so we're on this new app, you know, it's live stream, it's around the world. We're going to go ahead and do that. And they all start laughing. And yet Sir Richard Branson looked at me and he goes, wait, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's called Periscope. It literally just launched. Here's the thing. I know you love tech. People are literally watching you from all over the world in multiple languages. So I started speaking some Spanish. And he was like, no, you're kidding me. And I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, you all do me a favor. Drop exactly where you're from. Remind you, I had already prepped them. Sure enough, all of a sudden we start seeing all these cities come up. When I tell you, he was blown away. He was like, what is that? How can my team get a hold of that? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. We ended up having the most amazing 15-minute interview. It got on the news, like the video went viral, all these things happened. And right after, his team was like, hey, he wants to talk to you. He needs to know how he can get this. What is this? And it opened up a door of possibilities. But it started with me being willing to go what I like to call out on a limb, that's actually the name of my production company, but having that out on the limb gusto to say, even if I look like a failure or a fool to others, let me take this risk just in case. So I always go to that. If I'm nervous about a decision, it actually gets me excited because I'm like, all right, I have an opportunity to innovate here and not just be ordinary. None of us were born to be ordinary, but society sometimes frames us to be that. But when you find those pockets of opportunity to be extraordinary, definitely make the decision that takes you down that path, because by going down that path and choosing the one less followed, you actually get more gold at the end of the road. This is Liza with 2Zs. Please, thanks for letting me share.
Powerful. It had to get a round of applause. It couldn't just get a normal response. It couldn't just get a mic clap. It needs a double round of applause. I'm going again. Let's give it a harp sound effect as well. We all enjoyed that. Thank you, Liza. Fantastic. Yeah. I just love that when people inspire you to just do something a little bit different. Like say sweaty palms, your mouth goes dry, you get nervous. You're like, oh, what am I going to say to this person? Do you know what? Just jump in both feet first. Sometimes you just got to make the decision and just roll with it. So thank you, Liza. Appreciate it.
Has arrived.
What?
He's parking his car as we speak.
Oh my God. The Dean Kelly is in the building. I can't believe it. I better research some good questions there, realistically, haven't I? Because I can't believe, like, I've done a little bit of digging on Dean. Like the guy's done some stuff, hasn't he? When this is one of the things with Clubhouse, the beauty of it and the sort of the trickery of it. It's like, oh yeah, Dean's a nice guy. Yeah, just sit in Clubhouse with him a few times a week. But then you do some digging, and he's done some stuff, man. So we're going to be doing a deep dive interview with Dean later on. Paul, are you gonna take over for a little while?
Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. No worries at all. He looked at me like that again. Earlier, he wagged his finger at me. Yesterday, tried to kill me in a plane. Hey, I flew a plane yesterday, guys. That was exciting. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Turns out I get travel sick. Flash your mic mods if you've got a decision-based learning or lesson that you can share with the rest of our Winners Club family. Oh, by the way, before we do that, guys, just quickly, the Winners Club live stream is now on. So please go to either Ashley or to the Winners Club or to Paul or to my bio. Click on them. Excuse me, I just swallowed my own tongue. That was weird. Click on our full bios. Go to the link in the bio, and it will take you to a place called Sociotap. And when you get to Sociotap, you can look at either the live stream on Facebook. You can watch the live stream on YouTube. I'm waving at people now. I'm going to change the camera angle. Hang on a second. We've got the multiple camera angles. Where's that camera? That camera's over there. Hey, bad listening experience. Sorry, but good if you're watching. Go right now. Go onto YouTube or to Facebook, and you can actually watch the live stream at the same time. You can also text into the studio. So if you'd like to text a question, you can do so. Proper old school, like radio style. So yeah, the live stream is now up and running. This is Breakfast with Winners, brought to you by the Winners Club. In fact, let's also check on our stats because we've still got 5,900 members. We've gone up 100 followers though. What we want to get to is 2,000 followers and 6,000 members today before the end of the show. So make sure you click on the little green icon, the little green house at the top of the room, and go and give that a follow as well. And if you want to watch as well as, hey, some people watching on YouTube. Hello, people on YouTube, giving you a wave. Right, mods and speakers, flash your mics if you've got a decision-making story that you could tell us, either a time that you made. Diamond, coming to you. Over to you, my friend.
This is Diamond. Good morning, Ashley, and everyone with the Winners Club. I have to say, Liza, I loved your share. Absolutely amazing. Totally love your strategy and agree with it. I have a simple share, just 3 things that I have used to help me in my decision-making process. As someone who often suffers from shiny object syndrome, I really had to find a way to narrow down my opportunities and decisions. The first thing I look at is, does it align with my core values? Looking at that alone has allowed me to eliminate quite a few opportunities, although it may have paid well, although it may have been a minimal time commitment for me to do it. If it didn't really fit my brand or the direction that I'm planning to go at my company or just my overall representation that I want to have in the world, then I have to turn it down. So there's certain products that I won't partner with or certain organizations because it doesn't fit my brand. That easily allows me to make a decision, particularly in business and in life in general. Number 2, I look at what are the pros and cons of this decision. That's everything from time commitment to the opportunity cost. If there's things in the contract like you can't work with this brand or that brand if you're doing this deal, or any other things that may be a plus or minus for the deal. And then the last thing I look at is the return on investment. Let the numbers do the talking. When I first started my business, I had my hands in everything. I was saying yes, 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 because I wanted to grow, I wanted to scale, I wanted to do everything. But what I found out is I could not be everything to everyone. And I really need to narrow down my scope to things I could be really, really good at doing. Not only do I look at the money, although it's important to let the numbers do the talking in business, I also look at the impact. Because at the end of the day, I want to make an impact. I want to have something that's going to bring value to the world. I want to help as many people as possible. So whenever possible, I look at what kind of impact is this decision going to make, not just on my company, but on the larger scale, on the community, on the world. 'Cause I want to make an impact in my life. These are things that I have looked at when making decisions, and it served me very, very well. This is Diamond, and those are my thoughts.
Diamond, thank you very much. Thank you for that. I'm Paul with Blue Background, and I'm here now while James is just taking a break. Who else is here and who wants to flash their mics to share your decision-making story? Flash away so I can see you. Okay. Right, we'll go for Beju next, and then we'll move down. And Dean has just arrived. Beju, you go, and then we'll move down.
Well, what's the background noise like? Right, the chicken, is it bad?
No, it's manageable. It's manageable. Go for it.
So, like this young said earlier, my best time mate was when I left my job 15 years ago, Christmas job. So I'm not a traditional entrepreneur, businessman sort of. I started as a psychology lecturer, then I went and bought sales, and I was pretty successful. Well, very successful in sales. That's why I didn't leave. But it got to a point where I was in New York on the business trip. That was a really big deal, which I did, and earned a shitload of money. And I remember I phoned up the office, told them about the deal. They were ecstatic. And I sat in my hotel room, and I thought, wow. I felt, like 3 seconds, I felt great. Oh my God, I made so much money. Then I felt, it's just what life is about. And in that moment, I thought, I can't do it anymore. And I had loads of excuses about why I shouldn't start my business, not good enough, timing not right. I had a family, wife, all the rest of it. But then I realised the only real reason I'm not leaving was just the finances. Didn't have enough savings. That's why I flew back to Yacht London and said, right, how much do I need? Did a bit of property, and within a year, I was able to leave, and I left. And literally, the moment I had enough money, I left, and it's been the best. It's been ups and downs, good person the mark, but it's one of those things that a lot of people are saying is to choose, decision is easy, but then actual implementation is hard part.
Beju, sorry, I don't want to stop your flow. The background noise has got really, really loud. There's music coming through. Go quiet, and we'll come back to you. I think he's clubbing, isn't he? By the sounds of it. It sounds like when you used to call your mum and tell her you wasn't coming home at the time that she set you, and the music's playing in the background. No, honest, mum, I'm not at a club, but I promise you. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Cheers, Beju. Who was next flashing there? Olivia, you was flashing, wasn't you? Go for it, Olivia. Hopefully you're not in a nightclub as well.
No, I'm not. I'm on my couch, 2:22 a.m. in the morning. Always a pleasure to be with the Breakfast with Winners. So one of the biggest decisions I had to make in life was stepping out my comfortable 9-to-5 position to become an entrepreneur. And to just go full blown as a real estate agent. There's a few things I did look into before I decided to make that decision. The pros and cons of me leaving a 9-to-5 and going into entrepreneurship. Is it going to align with my goals and values? And also I had to plan ahead. I do believe that when you make a decision quickly, you are definitely going to be dedicated to that decision. But based off of my decision, I had to plan. So I told myself that I know that it was going to be a pro for me to step into entrepreneurship so I could be able to live the life that I wanted for me and my children, be able to have the time management that I wanted to on my end, and have the ability to be financially free and have more time with my children. So in order for me to do that, like I said, I had to plan ahead. So in real estate, it is not that easy for me to go ahead and make and close on homes so quickly. So I told myself, if I'm going to step out of a 9-to-5 position, I'm going to have to plan. And I told myself, I set a number, Olivia, put yourself make sure that you're under contract with at least 3 homes before you decide that you want to leave the position that you're in. And I planned that out. And I stood at that job, but at the same time, I was busting my butt in the background, dedicating myself to getting at least 3 homes under contract so I can make that transition into leaving a 9-to-5 job and to become a real estate agent. So for me, it's planning ahead, making sure that it aligns with my goals and values, which it did because I knew long-term goals. I wanted to be financially stable. I wanted to have more time with my children. I wanted to be free. I wanted to be able to manage my own time. And also, I weighed out all possibilities on what happens if I jump straight into entrepreneurship without having any homes under contract. What happens if I decide to not do that? So yeah, it was a lot of pros and cons. I looked into all the possibilities and also planning ahead. And I was able to get those 3 homes under contracts and some rentals. And within 5 to 6 months, I was able to leave that job. So my decision was a tough decision, but I took my time. I planned ahead. I weighed out my options, and it all lined up with my goals and values. So that's how I was able to make the decision to leave my comfortable 9-to-5, making $55K a year in a medical field in a hospital, and jump right into entrepreneurship as a real estate agent. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks for being here. Thank you for sharing. Who was next? Just give a flash of mics. We'll go for that's confusing, isn't it? There's 2 Tonys, both spelt the same with an I. We'll go for Tony McMurray first of all, and then we'll go for the resident Tony that we have here, and then we'll come back to Anthea. So Tony, go for it.
Amazing. Hi guys, I'm joining you here from South Africa. I just wanted to share, I love the theme on making that difficult decision, leaping from the 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship. And for me, it was planned, but it was also the exact moment was a gut feel, and like, this is the right time. And when I jumped, I remember the pivotal, in the beginning when things are hard and some of the contracts that you really thought were going to land didn't quite land through, and you're sitting in that pivotal point of like, oh my goodness, if I, is this when I should be looking back and getting a job again? Is this when I should be getting, because the bills are piling up and I've got to get stuff running for me now really, really quickly. I'm on thin ice here. And I had to make that decision that I'm all in on this. And I think that's something that you can spend a lot of time and energy going backwards and forwards. And is this the right decision? Is this the wrong decision? And making things that are happening in your external circumstances mean something. This must mean I wasn't good enough for this, or this must mean that I'm not ready, or whatever. And so I had to fully decide I'm fully in on this no matter what happens. And I could either use my energy going and focusing on the job hunt again and getting back into that, or I could use all of my energy into learning how to market and sell properly. And for me as a business owner, when I first started in this, it was like, you're good at your thing, but do you know how to market and sell? And so I had to spend a lot of energy getting my focus and my attention dialed in there. And it was a shaky, rough 3 months in that transition. And then I landed my client, and then the next one, and it just kind of seamlessly worked from there. And the funniest thing is, every time you upscale, there's that level of, do you just stay in your comfort, or do you lock in and say, I'm in this until it works? Not it has to work by the 1st of July 17 at 10 a.m. and then I'm quitting. It's like, I'm in this until it works, and I'm going to make every decision based on that big decision, which I loved hearing about earlier. So I think, I can't remember exactly who said that earlier, but it was just such amazing advice. So, yep, this is Tony, and I'm done speaking. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for sharing that. So look, it's 7:27 here in the UK. This is Breakfast with Winners, the Winners Club. If you haven't already done so, please follow the Winners Club. Click on the greenhouse. Follow the club. There's lots of changes coming to the app, as Liza with 2 Z's told us earlier. Yeah, lots of changes coming that all relate around clubs. So make sure you're following the club so you can get the best experience from Clubhouse. We also have Dean Kelly, who is here now in our studio. If you click on my face, the Winners Club face, James's face, Ashley's face, you can go through to our bios. Anyone, whoever's closest to you on stage, click on our faces, go through to the bio, click on the link, and you can click on the live feed from the studio, and you can see all of us sitting here with Dean. And we're going to be getting started soon with an interview. We've got some tough questions for Dean. Don't panic, Dean. James is really nice, so is Ashley. And yeah, we're going to get going with an interview. So I think we had next Tony Gargan. Go for it.
Thank you, Paul. What a way to start. You bring in Tony with the gorgeous South African accent and then bring in Scouse Tony afterwards. So apologies in advance for this. There has been so much great advice and guidance already, and I love Liza with 2 Z's Please masterclass. So I'm going to keep mine really short and sweet, which is both myself and many of the people that I've coached and mentored over time, I've learned that so many people focus on what the decision is and then look at the what if it goes wrong. And I think that's innate in many people. You know, it's the fight or flight thing, isn't it? But what I've learned is that if you focus on the split it into the two, which is the cost. So often people don't think of the opportunity cost of what if I don't do me. You get all the information together, you do your due diligence, and it's either a hell yes or it's a no. I've learned through experience when I've did the Dover decisions, I've, gone back into and it's a yes, it's a no, or turning out, trying to spend a lot of time deciding on it. They have often turned out to be the decisions that led to the worst results, not necessarily the best. And, my mum was a super wise woman, and she always used to say to me, Tony, you shouldn't have regrets, girl. But if you do, they should at least be the things that you've done. I love the irony of you shouldn't have regrets, but if you do. But for me, you make decisions, you decide to do it, and you go for it 110%. You put everything into it. Or if it's not a hell yes, and you've had all of the information to make an informed decision, then it's probably a no. And you can still make the best out of it often. But I do believe that too often people focus on when you make a decision, what if it goes wrong? What if? And if you flip that the other side and focus on that, what if it goes right? And what is the opportunity cost if I don't do this? And if that doesn't sway your decision, then it's not the right one. That's what I've learned through experience. Hope that helps. This is Tony with the Fascinator.
That's absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, great pun. Great pun. Come on, we can't leave that by itself. Come on, Paul.
That's about all I'm good for this morning, to be honest. I find your voice soothing, Tony, so don't worry. Moderators, just bear with us. We're moving people around. We're just going to move people down to the audience and move people back up so we can get Ashley and Dean back up to the top before we start the interview. So just bear with us while we're doing that. If we move you down, we will move you back up and then moderate you. So let's go for a couple more. Who else? Anthea.
Paul, I've just got a quick question, if that's okay for James. Do you mind?
Go for it.
I'm imagining James sat there with like a keyboard or some buttons. Can he just describe what he's doing to find funny noises?
Please don't give him any more time than we actually did.
No, we've already got it pre-piped in, so that we can do laughter, we can do applause, or we can do a slightly comical trombone. But that's it. So outside of those three things, we're done.
Also known as a free trick pony.
Which is 2 more tricks than my wife gives me credit for. So there we go.
Yeah, he's got buttons. He's like a child. They're buttons with colours on. The technical part, if anyone cares, is a Rodecaster Pro, which people probably know if you're in the podcasting world or digital space. Is one of those, but you can pre-program the buttons to do what you want. And James has taken to programming them with all sorts of noises. Sorry, Anthea, we ruined your fire there. So go for it, Anthea.
You can never ruin my fire. Thanks so much, guys, for creating this space. Decision making. I was listening to everyone's contributions this morning. I was like, I can see myself in all of them. And Lucienne, you mirrored what I did in the educational field. I'm still an educator. I love it. I'm a Montessori practitioner. But one thing that did really help me to make that decision was to leave the mainstream was to honor myself. I think when you stay in a situation that slowly chips away at your self-confidence, slowly chips away at your self-esteem, I think it's on you to then turn around and say, actually, no, regardless of where this is taking me, I must honor myself first. And I just wanted to share someone mentioned that they flew a plane yesterday, and I made the decision to take my son to go and fly a plane, to have a plane experience, to go and fly a plane age 10, after he was told age 7 that he would end up in jail because he had behavioral issues. So just those things, those kind of decisions that are fueled by honoring self and actually protecting self and your child, I think are really important. And yeah, that was my share really. I was gonna go on and on and on about, how I, tried to change the system from within. But Lucien's already covered that. But for me, it was honor yourself and understand that everything that happens to you is as a decision of you first honoring yourself or not honoring yourself. So I think that's a really important aspect. Thank you so much for the share, for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Anthea. Thank you for that. So who else do we have? Flash your mics. We'll take one more. Keep flashing, keep flashing, keep flashing. Who haven't we had before? I tell you what, because we haven't heard him speak a lot before, I'm going to go for Ned. Ned, go for it.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. It's great to hear everybody's stories and experiences. I wanted just to for a moment take it down a level, because there's a lot of people here who have had fantastic experiences with business, and the thing is, we make decisions every day. It's not just about those huge decisions that we make. We make decisions in the moment, whether it's, as you wake up and the choice you make to do what you do first in the day, or whether it's how you respond to the people that are in your life. And one of the things that I've had to learn throughout my career, and I have to say I've had those jumping off moments that you guys have talked about, is that how do I make a decision in the moment when I really need to? So you've all been there. You've all been in front of somebody who has done or said something that has created an anxiety or upset in the moment, and it's really easy to respond to that which happens in front of you. And what I've had to learn through my life is how to control that response, how to stop myself. And instead of having that instinctual fight or flight response, actually take a breath and say, okay, what's really happening here? Because as an individual, I find myself both fearful of confrontation, and I too am confrontational. So I used to find myself in a place where I would make a decision to fight, to take on the argument, and it wouldn't get me anywhere. So the point I'm making here is that whilst there are these huge decisions that we can make about our businesses and our futures, we make decisions every single day, all the time. And I think that if I were going to share anything, it would be somebody else's words. I think Viktor Frankl said it best. He said that, let me see if I can get this right, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. My name's Ned, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Ned. Thank you for that. We're going to take one more, and then we are going to start with the interview. So just to pre-frame this and pre-warn you, when we do start the podcast, we'll let you know that we're starting, and the podcast is being recorded at this end. So the interview section is being recorded. So if it comes to a point where you're asked to ask a question or you're on stage, please remain muted until we ask you to speak. And then when you ask a question, bear in mind that you are being recorded. So what you say will be out there in the ether forever, not to scare you at all.
Made that sound well dramatic.
Well, it was.
I'm terrified, and I know what's happening.
And we're not sitting in the chair waiting to be interviewed either.
Exactly.
Jewel, was you flashing before? Did you? I can see you guys all flashing, and we are going to come back to you. Jewel, was you flashing?
Yes, I was. I didn't think I would be able to talk. So how I make decisions, or how I make my best decisions, it's a little bit similar to how Dylan was saying for him, a quick decision. But for me, I would describe it as accessing my intuition. And so when I look back on my two best decisions of my life, The first was when I met my husband, and I was already in a 7-year relationship with someone else. And the second time was actually last year. So this time last year, I was still a photographer. I wasn't a life coach. But when COVID happened, it kind of took all the other choices off the table. It took all of the distracting stuff like away. And then I finally came to the point where I realized like photography was not where it was at for me, and it was a really hard decision for me. And so with my husband, I spent like a year or more struggling against what I knew, like he was the right person for me. Like I just knew. We've all heard that thing, like when you know, you know. And so when the choice came before me last year with photography versus coaching, I was like, I'm done ignoring all the signs in my life. Like I can feel this is the right thing. This is what my gut is telling me. I just jumped in. I went in both feet. I think the hardest part at that point was not focusing on all I had invested, like all the time, all the energy, all like the money and the equipment and the education, like the acquisition of all the skills, and to just go forward. And so this time around, it was like 1 month, and then I just went all in. I went into the certification program. I turned off my photography business, and yeah, that was for me. It's all about listening to my gut. And the more I think about something, the more it clouds my judgment. And I find that that's just really my fears, trying to throw more stuff on the table to distract me with. So this is Jewel. I'm pausing my mic.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Jewel. Thank you for the share. Very much appreciated. Right, we are at the not the witching hour. What's the opposite? What's the good opposite of a witching hour? I'm not sure. Ashley Shipman, over to you to quickly reset the room. Then we're going to get going with our illustrious guest for today.
Hello, guys. Yeah, so welcome everyone. We have Dean in the studio. So if you want to see the live stream right now, go to my face, Paul's face, James's face, or the Winners Club profile, and you can see the option to go live streaming. You can see us all in the studio right now before we pick Dean's brain on his achievements, his journey. So guys, the way it will work, I'll ask a question, then we will work down the panel. So guys, this is where we can dig deep behind a Clubhouse guest that is here with us most mornings, which is nice. And we are always looking for more guests to dig deep with. We have done a few that he's here regularly. So let's rock and roll. James, are you there? This part will be recorded. If you don't want to speak, you're more than welcome not to. But make sure you have some questions ready for Dean. We are sitting with Dean live now, so we can see if you have asked an uncomfortable question. Do your best, see what we can do, and let's go. So, James, are you there with the music?
I am indeed. Just before we do that, though, I'd love to encourage everybody again, come and watch the live stream right now. You can watch it on Facebook. We're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on YouTube as well. Click either Ashley, my face, the Winners Club face, or Paul's face as well. And then you can go through to the Socia tab and you can choose whichever platform. You can also put comments and questions. You can also text into the studio. Imagine if you were listening to like Capital FM, but for intelligent conversation, which I guess is basically LBC, isn't it? But imagine LBC, but without the adverts. That's basically what we're bringing to you today. Sounds good? Great. That's what we're doing. Let's get on with the show. In the words of the one and only Ashley Shipman, let's rock and roll.
The Winners Club is the weekly podcast that shares the highlights and insights from some of the most meaningful and impactful conversations from the #1 community on Clubhouse, the Winners Club. Join host Ashley Shipman as he summarizes some of the key lessons and learnings shared during the week by his world-class speakers, who include billionaires, business icons, and elite level performers from across the globe.
So welcome, Dean. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to the live broadcast of this podcast. So, Dean, you are here. You're here most mornings. So now here is the time that we dig deep into who you are, what you've achieved, the journey that you've created, and the legacy that you want to leave. So, Dean, welcome to the stage. And could you please give a brief interview, a brief bio of who you are and what the audience want to hear so they can ask some questions after I've asked the first few questions and we move down to the audience. So welcome to the stage, Dean. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to the Winners Club and welcome to this podcast. Off you go, my friend.
Thank you very much. God, what a professional setup. I was not that I was expecting anything less from you guys at all, but this is pretty cool. And I will say, because I'm a Winners Breakfast Club regular that these guys are definitely better looking than their avatars. So really nice to meet them face to face. So yeah, a few of you would have heard my story before, heard little bits about me in terms of when I speak on Clubhouse. I generally only speak when I've got some knowledge on something and something I think people want to hear. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. I can't give you a title in terms of what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to go with serial entrepreneur. And I say that because I've actually started, built and grown and exited several businesses over the last 20 years, mainly in the recruitment space. That's my background. I started as an IT recruiter, and then I set up my first business on my own in education recruitment. Now, I hadn't actually ever sold anything in education recruitment, hadn't actually ever worked with a school, didn't even like school that much, to be honest, but saw it as a nascent market. And so much so that my first business became the fastest growing agency in the UK. And actually it still holds the record for the fastest zero to exit. And I sold that business for a nice strong 8-figure sum at the nice age of 30 within 3 years. So that was quite quick for me. Unfortunately, I sold it to an acquisition vehicle, a PLC, that we were their 7th acquisition and promptly issued profit warnings on the stock market. So what did I do? I decided I was going to take over that business as well. So I became CEO of a PLC and apparently became the youngest CEO on the stock market at the time. Don't know whether that's 100% true. It was on Motley Fool. Someone showed me. I'm bagging it. It's in the CV. It's there. It's a nice little title. So I went around raising some investment. I broke that business up. I sold parts of the businesses, and then I delisted it from the stock market, and I built that back up, and I sold that as a debt-free enterprise in 2015. So when you sell a business, you have a few years out in the market, or that market, in terms of competition. I went out, I set up the RDLC, which is Recruitment Directors Lunch Club. Now the largest network of recruitment CEOs in the UK, about 300 of these aspirant leaders, and turnovers combined in the billions. I invested in several businesses, recruitment agencies, SaaS businesses. I sat on some boards. I advised private equity in terms of buying recruitment businesses. I even advised the behavioural insights team for the government on an app they're doing now. If you don't know who they are, they're the behavioural scientists who are working with Sage, giving us all these lovely orders on a daily basis. 2018, I went back into education. I set up an Omni platform, a workforce platform. There's a social enterprise, and that social enterprise helps schools get back time, save money, and improve their resourcing and retention. But it also puts money back into the system. So we've got a social goal of saving schools £100 million per year by 2024. Kind of been kicked a little bit by COVID, but schools essentially have been closed. But we believe we're going to get there. So that's something that's been very close to my heart, because I like to put money back into areas of deprivation and aid social mobility. Other than that, I do a bit of mentoring to help CEOs. I'm a big Clubhouse fan, as you all know, if you see me bouncing around. And I listen to everybody telling how much money they're making and whatever else. I'm completely the opposite on Clubhouse. I've personally invested 7 figures through connections on Clubhouse in the last 2 months. Now, I don't know whether that was lockdown brain or whether it was wise, astute decisions, but we'll find out soon.
Dean's follower numbers jump through the roof all of a sudden. His DMs go off the charts.
Yeah, I've reached my limit. I reached it by the end of February, I think. Yeah.
Funny, we need a bigger studio.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we've got 17 floors above. We'd like to create an entire media network. So, Dean, if you could stick around after, we've got a presentation we'd love to show on a whiteboard.
Dean, just touch on something there, just very quickly. Clubhouse, because James and I were with somebody else from Clubhouse who's a regular in the room yesterday, and we was talking about Clubhouse and finding the whole thing fascinating, really. And what did you come on and first think, what is this? I don't really know what it is. You know, what do I do here? And spend a week wandering around just trying to work it out.
Yeah, I probably spent 2 weeks wandering around. I was actually invited by Andrew Silito, who you all know quite well. If can I swear? I mean,
yeah, go for it.
I mean, look, 2 weeks in, I thought, God, this is wanky.
Wasn't expecting that word.
Yeah, this is definitely not me. And then I was in one of the larger rooms, and there were some Americans and some of the mod squad on stage and whatever else. And I was listening, and you'll probably find out I'm quite a moral, principled person. And if I see someone getting crap advice, I want to say, look, I won't say, look, you know what, you've just given them crap advice. I might say to somebody, here's what I would do. and let them make an informed decision. And so I raised my hand, I was tapping away, I got pulled up and disagreed with the main speaker on stage. But I made my point, which then led on to a bunch of people asking me questions. And I was pretty comfortable after that I was right. But yeah, and then after that, I was kind of hooked. You know, you've got that, you're there, people asking you questions, you're giving value. I must admit that a bit like my network of recruitment CEOs, yeah, you know, I give a lot of advice out and whatever else, but I get far more from them than they get from me. And I think Clubhouse is a bit like that as well. And for any entrepreneurs out there, especially when you get to my kind of age, and I'm now 46, you want to steal a little bit of energy from all these really buzzy young people who are coming out with these ideas, and that kind of fills me with an energy. So that's what I think Clubhouse has just been feeding my energies on a daily basis. I've had to monitor it recently because the world is going back to normal a little bit, and I've got lots of work and whatever else to do. But yeah, really enjoying it.
So when you did come on, because it's really interesting, as I say, we had this debate yesterday when we were meeting somebody else, and Paul and myself have had this conversation as well. Like, I run a business that is a service-based business, and this app can very much put you in front of the right audience. It's audio-based. I run a podcast agency. It makes sense. So I can spend a lot of time on here. I can generate a lot of leads, and they can transact with me really, really simply. For people like yourself and Paul, who have sort of done very well in business already, and you haven't really got the need to do it, did you come on initially just because Andrew said, hey, come and have a look at this weird app, you might find it interesting? Or were you playing that like personal branding game? Because you sort of, you do a bit, but then you, like say, you don't really talk about your successes that openly, if that makes sense. You're very much about building other people rather than yourself. So are you playing that personal brand game? Or are you not interested in that space?
No, I suppose when you look at it like that, I am. I've never, you know, up until Clubhouse, my Instagram account had 200 followers, and they're all family and friends, and it was a private account. I'm now nearly 1,000, and that's Clubhouse, right? So no one else is interested in what I'm doing, and I think I saw the power of personal brand, because in my space, in the recruitment space, most people know me, and you know, you're a hero in your own lunchtime, and that kind of works for you. But getting out and seeing all these different people and listening to all these backstories and learning from, you know, that's why I enjoy, you know, even the breakfast show, even if I'm working at the same time, which is I am most mornings, I learn something every single day. So I enjoyed that. I've never introduced myself. I mean, if I count up the amount of times I've introduced myself on Clubhouse, that's more than my whole life, right? You know, I've just never gone through that process. And then at first, I kind of, even the intro I just gave there was probably even a bit longer, because I was trying to work out, you know, where do you, and it wasn't, I didn't shorten it until I come on a breakfast this morning. And she's like, oh, you got 10 seconds. What would I do?
Can I stop there? Then I looked at his bio, and then what did I call it?
A menu. You went, yeah, I don't know what to say.
I reckon what actually happened is he then went to Instagram, saw you hitting a bag, went, I better sharp here. I'll get right back, giving it loads.
Oh yeah, so I've named Dean's bio a menu now. I even asked him yesterday. I messaged him. I said, "What do we call you?" Because I'm looking at your bio now, and he said, "Just call me a entrepreneur." And I thought that sums everything up for me.
Absolutely. I was looking at your not Instagram. I'm one of the 1,000, one of the under 1,000. Let's try and get Dean to 1,000. We've got to do that today, surely. I was looking at your LinkedIn yesterday, and some of the stuff that you've done is absolutely incredible. One of the things that I want to, you talked a minute ago about one of your passions is to aid social mobility. I don't know if you've talked that much in other rooms about it. Can you take us right the way back to like where your journey started? Because you were from, you got a boxing background, you were from sort of like a very working class background. You've obviously done very well. Take us back to like young Dean. What's the journey to get to where you are now? From birth to 46 in less than 60 seconds, or else Ashley's going to kill you.
I'll get to birth to the beginning of my bio. So yeah, born just off the Edgware Road, North London Council Estate, doing all the things Council Estate boys do. Dreamed of being a footballer and a boxer. You've now met me. I'm short with short arms, so that's not great for being a good boxer. I was picked up by Chelsea and dropped after a couple of seasons. So yeah, kind of realised I wasn't going to be, you know, this professional sports person. But one of the things that differentiated me, I suppose, from my peers on the estate was I lived in North London, and within my reach, my borough Barnet, I could, you know, there was the top schools in the country and the bottom schools in the country. So from where I was from, I was the only boy to go to a school called Queen Elizabeth Boys School in Barnet, which if you look up school tables is now top school in the country. I played things like fives, Eton fives. Anyone knows what that is? That's, you know, severely posh. So yeah, posh it is. remember coming back on a Saturday after an Eton Fives game, walking through my estate and meeting a couple of mates from my boxing club. "Oh, where you been, Dean?" "Been playing fives." "What? Been playing five? Where's that?" So it's this concrete room and you've got hand gloves on and you're hitting a ball. It's a bit like a golf ball. Tell you what, it's a bit like squash. My mate went to me, "What's squash?" So, you know, we knew football, boxing, bit of cricket and egg chasing. And, you know, that was kind of it. I think when I got to, and that for me was an eye opener. You know, the children there had BMWs and Mercedes. And for back then, anybody of my age will know they were much more affluent cars than they are today. My mum had a Skoda Estelle, if anyone remembers that, a little, you know, engine in the boot.
And this was before Skodas were like the second version of Skodas, which are all right now.
This is proper Eastern European.
And that wasn't a private school. That was just a normal public school.
Proper public school. So Cuboy, my sister went to Henrietta Barnett as well, which is in Hampstead. So we went to the 2 top schools in the country. My brother obviously followed suit. Worst thing about that was I had to go past 3 comprehensive schools where I'd grown up with people from different estates. And as you get to your teens, then you're the posh kid, right? You know, and me being me and the only boy from my school on this bus, I would still sit up the back, you know, got into loads of fisticuffs and whatever else, but I couldn't, I'm quite a moral person. I can't back down because I know that grates you forever. And then I think when I got to about 21, my cousin went to prison, my best mate went to prison, several pals went to prison, but that wasn't really me. Yes, if you bought some fake Ralph Lauren or Armani in North London, that probably came through me in my early 20s. So if
I think I bought some.
Yeah, if your jeans run in a wash, yeah, and your mum had a moan at you, that was definitely through me. So I was always a bit of a wheeler and dealer, but yeah, I sat down, I wrote down 10 goals by the age of 30, decided I wasn't going to do the things I was doing at that time. And yeah, went about this journey of, you know, one was a monetary value, which I hit by the time I was 30. Actually, the only one I didn't hit by the time I was 30, and I didn't concentrate on these all the time. I did for about 3 or 4 weeks, was I would be invited by whoever the Prime Minister is to number 10. And I did. David Cameron invited me. I signed a letter in the Telegraph for them. And I got invited for business services and education as well to number 10. I've since met every Prime Minister since then, Boris and Theresa and others, although I can't say I'm a fan at the moment. But yeah, so it's a complete, when I talk to my friends, you know, I've got drunk with Channing Tatum. Who does that, right? So
writing that down for a further question.
So you look back and you go, yeah, I was with this person, done it, and completely off the scale. Unimaginable when I was younger. But I one of my faults, and my wife points out quite regularly, is I don't take time to enjoy what we've had, what we've got, the things we've done. I'm always thinking about something else, and I hate. And go back to your thing about, do you have to? The worst thing for me in the world is to feel comfortable. Hate it. I make myself uncomfortable all the time, and I want to be uncommon. I want to always be doing something. I haven't got the energy I had when I was in my 20s. But I've still got a lot of energy, annoyingly so, for my 20-year-old son who says I'm the most immature in the house and I have too much energy and make too much noise. But yeah, that's me. That's cradle to bio.
Fantastic. I'm going to, sorry guys, I'm probably going to jump in because I'm just a nosy podcast question asker. So one of my things that jumped out for me there is obviously you're in a situation where you're going past the other kids on the estate, past the 3 schools. You are having to sort of, you're willing to stand up for your morals from early doors. You're willing to, you know, have fisticuffs on the back of the bus if needs be to stand up for being the posh kid on the rough estate. Who then was the person, because you mentioned about goals, you mentioned you set these goals for sort of the 10 things you wanted to do before 30. Who was the person who even taught you that goals were a thing? Who was your circle of influence at that point that was like, do you know what? Let me pluck you from obscurity and like, let me put you on the right path. Was there somebody, or did you discover a book, or what was it?
I got to be honest, no one. You know, I don't come from a broken home. My parents work really hard. My dad's an electrician. Always worked really hard. We go into offices in the city and you go, oh, they don't work very hard in the city. Now, I worked in the city for 22 years, and you go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go there 11 o'clock at night, there's people working their butt off. They might be dressed nice and whatever else. So nobody could really tell me about those things. I think I just saw it as something to do, to get it out of my system, to write down and just put a bit of colour around my late teens, my early 20s. I was caught in between some gang violence as well. Just to add a little bit of flavour to this. When I was 15, I stopped a friend being attacked with a bat by 2 boys, 16, 17, on my estate. And then they attacked me with the bat, which I didn't really think through at the time. But then I attacked back and gave one of them quite a good beating. I felt very good about myself at that time until my mate said, "Do you know who their family is?" And it just, I had 20 odd people outside my house within about an hour. My dad, being my dad, went out with a hammer and a baseball bat, goes, "Right, anyone one-on-one with him?" And it's all, and that just aggravated the whole thing. And I'll tell you how high it got. I mean, I was attacked, I was bottled, I was stabbed in the backside. I sort of always fighting back, and my cousin was from another state, not very far away, and so I had all my friends there. And so that kind of ended up getting me caught in the middle, and it ended actually. But I was shot at. Yeah, this is all very true. I don't expect that from the youngest CEO in the stock market, do you? And then they stabbed a friend of mine, another friend, whose brothers happened to be a level above gangsters, and it kind of all died a death. And I think by then, that was why I was by 21, and I was like, do you know what? I can't be involved in this anymore. So I sat down, and I think all of that drove me to a point where I had to write down some goals. I had to have something to aim for. I started buying the FT. I'd never, Beano, Viz, and whatever else was kind of my magazines before that. And I started reading the FT. I've even got a book I just recently gave my son, who's doing a business degree, on how to read the FT, because I just didn't understand what I was looking at.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I knew if I read these things like by an economist.
But what made you do that? Like you've been stabbed in the arse and you've had a fight and then it's all died down. Like how do you get from there to going, do you know what? I'm just going to buy the FT and read it. Like, well, there has to be a catalyst.
I don't know. The person before me I'd seen reading the FT was Graham Lassalle, and he got a lot of stick for it. Actually, not knowing well, but I've got a funny story about Graham Lassalle as well. I think I just, when you visualize, I visualized what I wanted to be. There is a story actually on LinkedIn I wrote in March when all the riots were going off last year about being, a victor and not a victim. And you can either look down and be a victim of your circumstance, or you can step up. Now, nobody's ever given me a leg up. My parents weren't in a position to give me a leg up. Nobody was. I had to do it on my own. And I think that's what I worry about my children. And they're bored. They go to private school. They do they've got all the trappings of the successes that come with that. Do you take away their hunger? Because I had no choice. I had to come out with my car keys in my hand, swinging, just making sure that I was causing a bit of a melee, and I was going to get somewhere. A bit like my swimming, according to my wife. Front crawl, make loads of wash, go nowhere. But I keep going. And
she's quite tough on you, isn't she? Your wife?
God, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got a big list of things wrong with me. But yeah, I just think when you've got that much desire to not be where you are, to be somewhere different, you visualize where that place is. You visualize what you need to do to get there. And I needed to understand things that I didn't understand. I'd not been taught. I didn't go to university. My school, unless you were going to go to an Oxbridge, they basically told you not to stay on. And I hadn't really factored that into my education. So I ended up over at college, done a BTEC National in Science, and I was actually thinking about being an osteopath. And back then it wasn't recognised. And so you couldn't get funding, and my parents couldn't afford to do that. So I got a job in a property management company as a trainee accountant in audit, lasted 3 weeks, most boring thing in the world. So I couldn't do that. I just think, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I just didn't want to do that. And that's such a big driving force. I've met lots of very successful people who've come from nothing, and their biggest fear is being poor again. And I mean, I'm talking people with 300-400 million pounds, not me. And it gets them out of bed every morning. So I don't know whether it was being poor, but it was making the best of my family. I didn't want for my kids to grow up and go, although it made me, and I'm happy with that, I didn't want my children to go through that.
Do you have that fear of going back to where you've come from?
I don't have that sort of fear. I mean, there's actually a comfort when you look back on it, right? So for anybody who's been successful, made money, and you buy all these assets, boats, cars, and all, I've got all these things going on. I'm like, wow, that costs a lot of money to run. But you think, I'll get that money, I'll buy that, I'm settled for life. That's not the case. Many years ago, when you could get 12-15% on your current account, maybe you could have lived off your income, but you can't do that anymore. So for me, I don't necessarily think I would be concerned about myself. I wouldn't want my children to go back there. I've taken my children back to where I lived. Many years ago, I had a Bentley, and I took my eldest son there, and we drove. I lived right in the back of the estate. There's bars on the windows and all these types of things, and people, doing things they shouldn't be doing. And I took him and I held his hand. He was really holding my hand. He's like, "Dad, there's a man weeing up a wall there." And I was like, "Don't worry about it." But I felt confident. Felt super confident. This was my home. So I walked to the back of this garden, little tiny garden. It's no bigger than this room actually. And the gates were down, and there was a mix of people in there smoking drugs, drinking beer. What are you looking at? I said, I used to live here. All right, and that was it. And if that had been any other estate in London, I'd have probably been a little bit mindful that I've got a Bentley out there, and so they know you might have a couple of quid in your pocket and whatever else. But I felt fine, and I've been back loads of times just to walk around and park up a nice car and all those types of things. I don't want my children to go through that, because for all of that, I think that's me just leaving my mark, going back saying, yeah, you know, I bettered this, I did better. But to be fair, if I'd been a postman or whatever else, I'd have probably bettered all my mates in terms of what they achieved anyway. But yeah, I don't fear being poor, because I think for anybody who's made it, if they did go back to square one again, you'd probably be confident that you could do something.
Make it
with
back
that.
quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with sorry, I'm taking out. Then I'll stop. Promise. I've got one more question. Then I'll let other people chime in. The kids being hungry thing. I'm absolutely intrigued by this, because I've got 2 children at the moment. They haven't got to worry about sort of my wealth looking after them too much at the moment. We'll get to that point. We're getting there. We're getting there, kids. Don't worry. But I'm always intrigued by people who've come from the sort of background that you've come from, and come from those estates, and like I say, and go back there, and there's bars on the windows, and your little boy's on your hand going, oh, look, there's a guy wheeling up against the wall. How do you, when the only thing that you know is a hunger to better your circumstance, but your kids haven't got that? Like, you had to get up in the morning, and I can think, you know, like sport and elite level boxing stuff, that you know, you get up early, you train really hard, there's no shortcut to it. You're just going to have to get punched in the face. You're going to have to do the road miles. It's as simple as that. How do you install hunger into rich kids effectively? How do you have to be mindful of that? You can't use your estate dean mentality on kids in a manor house.
Yeah. After I took my son back, I went home and I said to my wife, "Oh, yeah, I went back," and she's like, "What do you expect him to get from that?" You know, he just can't. He can't understand it. You know, at the time they had a playground in our garden, which was bigger than my house, right? So they just don't get it, and that's the thing I learned. And do they need to be streetwise? Probably not. I would prefer that they gave up their money if somebody wanted to mug them or whatever else, rather than. And I'm sure for all of you as well, you think you would, but you wouldn't. You just fight back. I think it's a natural reaction. I had this conversation, exactly the same conversation, with a guy called Luke Johnson. So for anybody in the UK who knows some famous entrepreneurs, Luke sold Pizza Express. He was worth, up until recently, about 350, 400 million pounds. He lost 160 million overnight in Patisserie Valerie with the issue with their CEO. Now, look, I got Luke to invest in my business when I was doing this turnaround. In 24 hours, he agreed to put £5.5 million in. And we were out for dinner one night, and he had children later on in life. He didn't have his first child, I think, till he was 40 or 42 or something. And I had my children quite young, and we were discussing that. And I was saying, well, my concern is, will they lose their hunger? And he said, I grew up with the Rothschilds and the Goldsmiths and whatever else. And he said, and it is really hard when your dad or your mum and dad have done really well in terms of what they've gained in assets and capital and actually success, because that's how we measure success, right? A lot of the time is through capitalism. A lot of them either go and work as, become doctors or socialites or drug addicts. And he said, because the pressure's so much harder. And actually, when I thought about it, there's less jobs at the top of the pyramid than there are at the bottom of the pyramid. And the expectation of your children when you've made money is that they start halfway up the pyramid and not down at the bottom. So they've always got a lot further to fall, and they've always got you as someone that they feel like they're in their shadow. And so it's been a concern, but I've seen nature take course with my children. My daughter is 15. When she was 13, 14, she'd made over £1,000 by making slime and selling it at school and doing stuff. She's very, very entrepreneurial. My middle son is a sports scholar. My older son is doing a business degree. He's got 3 or 4 little businesses running on the side, plus working for me. So I'm not sure whether he's actually working for me in the office or he's doing his own stuff.
He's definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely not.
Definitely not. And then finally, I've kind of got them to understand that they're going to have to fight for this. They do appreciate, I think, especially as they get older, they do appreciate that, I'm flying out to, I've got a place in Mallorca as well, flying out there to launch the boat so I can leave my son and his mates on it, and they're going to go out for it. I mean, that stuff just doesn't happen. And, but they do recognize it, because my daughter said to me, and maybe one of you can explain this, my daughter said to me about 6 months ago when they were talking at school with her friends, and she came home and she went, "Dad, are you a roadman?" And I was like, right, okay.
What school did she go to? I thought she went to a posh school.
They go to posh school, but obviously, you know what it's like when you get to 15, you're interested in all this rough stuff. I was like, I've got no idea. I'd phoned 3 friends. I had no idea. I just thought it was a chav, to be fair. But
I don't know what it means, so I'm sitting here laughing.
it's just a street person.
Someone who makes their money on the road.
On the roads, yeah.
In whatever guise possible.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think you'll find as long as you don't, pave it too easily for them, that they'll come through. They'll come into their own. I think we all worry about their children, and that's my main goal in life, to make sure I just create good rounded people, and whatever they want to do, they do, and they're successful at and happy as well.
Anyone else want to chime in, or else I'm going to keep going all day?
No, yeah, I'll go. Why recruitment, first of all, and then, we've talked about publicly listed companies and selling your business for 8 figures. How did it start? Did it start in your kitchen at home? Did it start at a dining room table? Did you seek some investment from somebody? What was that first year of starting that business?
So I suppose I had a bit of luck, actually. We'll talk about a bit of luck. I got into recruitment because, excuse me, I'd got this job in a property management company. I was training to be a surveyor, distance learning, hated it. The surveyors were the most miserable people. They all hated their
Thanks
job.
for that. I'm a quantity surveyor, by the way, but cheers. Thanks.
I remember picking up the Estates Gazette going, God, if in 5 years after qualifying, that's what I'm going to be earning. I earn more than that from dodgy Armani and Ralph Lauren. So
the answer to your kid's question, is he a roadman? He used to be, and could still turn it on if he needed to.
Yeah, and so I bumped into a friend. I was working in Kentish Town, Camden, as a commercial negotiator. I bumped into a friend doing recruitment. He was wearing a tag watch, and just told me about all the things he was doing. And I thought, is that BS or not? Besides Office Angels, I didn't know what recruitment was. So I looked around, and I just basically picked up the Evening Standard, and the Evening Standard's been a catalyst for a couple of things in my life. I picked it up and I saw which one had the largest OTE, and it was this tiny little advert, 100 grand a year. I was like, yes, I'll have some of that. And so I went in.
Jordan Belfort's story when he's looking in the paper.
It was like that, yeah. Actually, I know a few people who've invested money in things like that and got it wrong. And I went for all these interviews. A guy who's my business partner, actually, Gary Goldsmith, in the RDLC, part of a business that's a £1.2 billion, 200 FTSE 250 company. And I got a job there after 14 interviews. Right, so you saw 7 people one day, 7 people the next day, and they have an all in or all out. If one of you says no, you don't get the job. And it was very Wolf of Wall Street back then, 1998. I was crap for 6 months. Thought I was going to get sacked every single day. And that's how I got to know Gary. I was a trainee, and he was this managing director. And he called me in one day, and he was like, I don't know how to. You are in here at 6:30 in the morning. You leave here at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. You work so hard. I've spoken to all the managers here, and they say no one works as hard as you. How is it you're so shit? Why are you not doing deals? And I looked a bit dishevelled at the time, but because I'd gone from earning decent money to a 10 grand basic, and I had a mortgage. I bought a house when I was 21, which I didn't live in because I couldn't cook or clean, and but I saw it as an investment. I took out a pension when I was 18. People don't do that when they're 18. This is all these life-changing things I was doing in my head. But I was also a cleaner. I was cleaning my football club after 8 games on a weekend, after I'd done boxing on a Sunday, and that was for 25 quid cash in hand. I was ripping out bathrooms. I was doing work on building sites at the weekend. Anything I could get for a cash in hand job, I was doing. These are great war stories when you've got staff and you tell it, yeah, it's all right for you. You've got these things. And I tell them so. But I was putting in all this extra effort, and I was doing work after work because I didn't want to go back anywhere near what I did before. And so he offered me a guarantee for 3 months and said, right, you drop everything else. He called it moonlighting. I said, it's not really moonlighting, is it? Right. But drop everything else and see where we get to. And then it just upticked. And then I left and I went to another business. I became one of the top billing consultants in the whole country. I was interviewed by the Evening Standard, so going back to the Evening Standard on, is the internet too hot to handle? So this was 2000, and I kind of gave my opinion, which was, I had no real efficacy to it. I just said what I said, that yeah, it's overheated and whatever else, and it did have the pot, which wasn't very good because I was running an e-commerce desk at the time, so maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. And then I was, because of this story, I was headhunted, and I was headhunted to go over to. Oh, got a bit of an echo.
Sorry, yeah. Schoolboy error from James there. He's unplugged his headset from his phone.
I was headhunted to go over for some investors who set up a business, been 3-4 months in, 4 or 5 staff. And I think just because they read this interview, they thought, God, this guy's meant to, he's got to be in this industry for bloody ages, not 3 years. And they said to me, right, why don't you come in, manage this team, grow it, and see where we get to. And I had a ratchet on effect with shares. So my thing would be at the end of the year, be a director. I'd get equity in this business, direct vesting equity in the business. And I was earning a lot more money before that than I ever thought I could ever earn. And they kind of sold me on a dream of, well, 1% would be worth £1 million. So wow, yeah, I'll have some of that as well. So I'm going to move. And I went there, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I grew that company to 7 million turnover and 42 people in a year. And I had no idea whether that was good or not. And actually, because of the ratchet, I fell out with the directors because the shares would have been more than they were willing to give away. And I thought that argument was coming up. I had my resignation in my pocket, walked in, sat with the directors. We're all salespeople. They're all playing their game. And I said, look, the fact that we're doing this means I can't continue this relationship. So I ripped up and I gave them my resignation. They ripped up, said, you can't do that. I phoned a friend to make sure I could. And I walked out, and I essentially went off and started my own business. But that was in IT, and I went and did education because just prior to leaving, I'd met someone who did education recruitment. I'd helped set up a small team. It'd gone quite well. It was a nascent market, and I thought I'm going to go and do that. So I think because of I got to do it with somebody else's money. So I had a lot of confidence in terms of, right, I can do this. I had a DTI loan, 35 grand. That was it. I spent all my savings, all my money. I just moved to another new house. All these types of things that people probably tell you not to do. And I think I had my second child on the way. Just don't go and start a business. But yeah, I did. And again, that's about being uncomfortable. And every time I felt comfortable, I did something else. So I don't think I had intentions to sell it in 3 years. I was probably sold to. It's a bad decision, even though it made me wealthy. It was a bad decision because there was so much life in that dog. There was so much we could have done with it. Just to give you an example, why it was so fast growing. When we were 2 weeks old, I hadn't ever even placed a teacher. We were doing state schools in the UK, and doing my economist read and whatever else that I still had as a daily routine. I saw about this company called Global Education Management Systems, and one of my trading companies was Global Education. And it was a Dubai-based business. So anyone who's been to Dubai, if you've been to Dubai and you go down the Al Sheikh Zayed Road and you see these schools called GEMS, right? So it's owned by a guy called Sunny Vark. He's the chairman. Sunny's worth, I don't know, 2.6 billion or something now. So I thought, okay, I'll pick up the phone. I'm going to have a chat with him. And so I rang around Dubai, doing my recruitment stuff, trying to get numbers. I managed to get his mobile number. And I won't give those secrets away, but some little secrets of how to get people's details. So got his mobile number and I pitched him a few hours later. I got a little bit of backstory, and he gave me 45 seconds when he answered the phone. I told him who I was, who I am, what I want to do, and just very, very quickly. And he said, "You've got 45 seconds. What is it?" But I said, "Look, before we start, your backstory is amazing. So there's a little tip, right? If you ever speak to a billionaire or a very successful multimillionaire and they've got a backstory, ask them to tell you about it because they all like talking about themselves." So he gave me his backstory. I talked a bit about what I did. 45 minutes later, he said, "Dean, come and have breakfast with me." I said, "Sonny, you're in Dubai. I'm in the UK." He said, "No, I keep 3 suites in the Dorchester," which he does all year round. He also owns a huge house called Updown Court. If you want to look that up, it's probably one of the nicest houses in the country. And I went there, and for a Wednesday morning, I thought this is pretty cool, right? I've not really done any business, but I'm turning up suited and booted to see a billionaire for a breakfast in his Dorchester suite. What more could I ask for? If it doesn't go well, which I don't expect it to do, so what? And I sat down, and in front of me on the desk was a proposal from Capita and a proposal from Serco. And if anyone doesn't know, they are FTSE 100 companies at the time. So that's who I was up against, little me, no, not even a month's management accounts. And I had breakfast with him. Before I got back to the office, I'd had a phone call from his assistant saying, "Sonny would like to fly you out to Dubai in a couple of weeks." Flew me out to Dubai and toured his schools, and I got all of his business on Soul, which was a great catalyst for us as a business. I then won 12 local authorities, and it's hard to win a local authority because you've got to have 3 years accounts, you've got to have all these accreditations, whatever else. So I come up with a clever way of getting around that with ethical contracts. So we then become the fastest growing agency. And I think because I had no misconceptions or preconceptions about what I could do in that industry, I've always aim for the top and then see where you get to. So did I think it was going to go that way in 3 years? Yeah, you've always got confidence in yourself. I didn't think we'd be that profitable or get that many people knocking at the door. And I always say to people, I prefer to be bought than sold. And that time around, we were bought. We had lots of people knocking on the door. Yeah.
Wow.
What a story. How important is that willingness to just pick up that phone? Do you think, how many times has that sort of won out in life for you? The willingness to just get the guy's phone number and go, do you know what? I don't expect to get an amazing outcome here, but if I get 45 seconds, I'll have a go at 45 seconds. How important, because you've got a lot of business acumen now, you've got a lot of experience, but how much of that like willingness to just go, I'll just do that? How much do you think that's played into your success? It's
everything. How many people have you ever met that said, oh, do you know what? I had that idea. Or I was going to start that business and whatever else. And the difference between success and well, if you call it entrepreneurial success or being an entrepreneur is that actually the execution of doing something. I don't deliberate about something. I like to have a little bit of insight. So I like to have something warm to go in on if I can. But yeah, it's always been the way. I'll pick up the phone. I will go and contact somebody. If I'm networking, if I want to get somewhere, if I want to get, I promised myself I'd get to number 10. I draw organograms and I work out who reports into who and whose name I need to drop to who and where I need to get to. And I've done that my whole business life as well, and that's worked out really well for me. But
what's an organogram for those who are listening? I mean, I do them all the time. I've done 17 this morning on the way here. But for those who are listening, idiots who don't know what an organogram is, just break it down for them, Dean. Not for me, for them.
Just an organisational chart. Just
of course it is solid.
Keeping an idea of who reports into who, and you got to remember if you're trying to get big business, it's very hard to push up the chain. Because not a lot of businesses, especially you're selling into corporate worlds, want to hear from their understudies or someone 2 people below them. So you go to the top. The funniest one I ever had, actually, I was pitching Sony down in Basingstoke. I was trying to get some vacancies when I was an IT consultant, and I was doing my little thing of messing around with numbers, getting myself sent to the post room, saying reception have got this wrong 3 times. Just pass me over to this person. And I ended up, I can't remember the name, but a Japanese fella answered the phone. And obviously, there was a bit of a language barrier because my Cockney and his Japanese didn't really work that well. But he passed me on to someone else, and they were really, really submissive to me when I spoke to them on the phone. Gave me a meeting. I went down and met directors. I didn't realise it was one of the bigwigs from Japan who'd come over, and I'd gone through on his phone, and got loads of vacancies, got loads of business. But if I hadn't have been proactive in trying to do that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, minute by minute, I'd have never got where, because I didn't go to university. I haven't got the skills. I can't walk in somewhere and say, look, this is everything I've done, I've never done before. And I've just learned on the job, and it's been a fast learner. I think then your brain gets into that scenario. And again, Clubhouse, right? Everybody's on there learning, and that's the type of individual it attracts.
I've got a question. Of course I have, because I'm talking. It sounds stupid. A lot of people, when they sell a business, I had it a little bit. I went into a period of self-inflicted retirement for a couple of years. Talk about, waking up the day after selling the business and going, oh, what the hell do I do now? And sort of feeling lost and being lost and having, great financial benefits from selling the business and then actually not knowing what to do next. Did you experience that? And if you did, what was it like getting out of that?
It was slightly different because obviously I had this failing company, and it had a couple of loan notes in there and some shares that I needed to get back. Thank Luke for putting that money in, which gave me my loan notes back. I think I did a talk at LinkedIn about 2 years later, and to an audience mainly recruiters, and I was asked, what was it like when you went and you go to the cash point and you got all these numbers and noughts and whatever else, and I think that buzz lasted for about 4 seconds. And I already had a decent lifestyle, better than I'd ever thought I'd ever get. And I walked into my business on the Monday because we had another bit of an earn out for the next year. So I went into my business on Monday, and I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach, like it had gone. That was why I got up every morning. I buzzed. That's why I was first in, last out. That's why I won all those accounts, and I sold with such confidence because it was my business, my baby. Everything that was done there. We come up with loads of new stuff, which is mainstay in that market now, was because of me and my team and the people I trained. The people I trained, I mean, a lot of them are multimillionaires. I've got 18 people I can list that are liquid millionaires that I've trained and brought up from their cradle in recruitment, and still advise some of them now. So yeah, it was a tough one. I suppose I had the trappings of wealth, and you do buy things that you don't need. Right? There's so much crap out there you didn't think you needed until you've got the money to buy it. But I think I had a focus. I didn't enjoy the next business as much, even though I learned much more, because it wasn't wholly my business. Yes, as a material shareholder and the CEO, but there was others involved, and there was a board as well. So I suppose my little bit of depression, I think looking back and listening to what you said, I probably had for the first 2 years in that business. I was going through the motions and doing what I should be doing. But I made a lot of mistakes in those first 2 years in terms of things that I wouldn't have normally done. I think when you run a PLC, you become an accountant rather than a business owner. And that's not what I did. I was dragged out to see institutions and sat there and they asked me questions which I couldn't answer because it was a closed period or whatever it might be. And I got an FD next to me and I was like, this is the most pointless use of my time. Plus I hate it. So I went around just restructuring the business. And I think I had to have another point, probably 18 months in, where I went, do you know what? I'm taking all this advice from all these different people. And where I've in my life actually lost material money and whatever else has always been on someone else's advice where it looks really good and they're selling to you rather than something I can personally do. So I only invest in businesses now where I can sit on the board or I can personally affect an outcome in that business, because I hate not having control in something or saying, right, yeah, I can jump in, roll my shirt sleeves up and get involved and turn that around. So yeah, looking back, I reckon I probably had a mild depression for about 18 months, even though I was going to work every day and doing what I should be doing and going through the routine. That was just that memory muscle, I think, that discipline that you get from running your own business.
Thanks, Dean. Let me just quickly reset the room. It's 8:24 a.m. You're with the Winners Club, Breakfast for Winners. We have Dean Kelly, who's a regular in the breakfast room, here in the studio with us, and we're doing a deep dive, extended question and answer session with Dean, and it's also being recorded for the podcast. So if you haven't already done so, click on the green house, the Winners Club, follow the club, and also click on all of the speakers and moderators that are here, giving their time on a regular basis. And make sure you follow them. It is the Clubhouse currency, as Ashley says. So I think at this point we move on, unless you've got anything to say, James.
James has got.
I've got a million things. So I've got a page full of notes, but I think we better open it up because someone's gonna be like, "This guy just does not stop talking, does he?" I'm going to do a separate room with Dean where I'm going to have him in the studio for 17 hours, and I'm not going to let him out until he's answered all of my damn questions.
And you're not seeing this, Dean, but there's loads of love coming through with the screens that we've got in front of us. Apart from making James look important, they've actually got the comments coming up.
That's the only reason they're here, by the way, guys. I don't even know what's on here. I use it for looking at LinkedIn.
There's loads of love coming through from people that are in the audience watching, and lots of good comments for this interview. So let's open it up to questions from the audience. So as we always do, please flash your mics if you've got a question for Dean, something to contribute, a question for Dean. Flash your mics as we come down the panel.
While we do that as well, by the way, guys, we need to get Dean some more followers. He's a guy who is sharing his wealth and plethora. That's right, I'm using words like plethora today of knowledge and insight. Go give him a follow here on Clubhouse. Dean is in the middle and the top row. Go and give him a follow. Also give him a follow on Instagram. Let's get him to those 1,000 followers that he so desperately wants. This is a guy who should have a lot more people watching what he does, because he humbly and honestly and transparently shares some really useful insights and wisdom. So go follow him everywhere.
I want to say one more thing before we move on. Nick's people, I see all you guys flashing your mics. I find Clubhouse absolutely fascinating because, like I say, James and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. You've got this world of social media influencers, and then you've got the world of, people like you that have vast business experience but no profile across social media. And the fact that we can all be on an equal playing field in Clubhouse, and that we, I remember the day I think I brought you into the breakfast room or brought you up on stage.
You did,
yeah. And I scrolled down. I often do it. I often scroll down and read people's bios and say, invite. And I sent Ashley a message. Said, Ashley, this guy Dean Kelly's in the audience.
You did.
Yeah, great bio. Let's bring Dean up. Yeah, and we brought you up, and you said, I just find the way it works fascinating.
We live in a world now where influencers have more influence than people who are influential. Oh wow! I'm going to put that as a quote graphic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was the most meaningful quote of my life or just absolute shit.
I do get that. There is,
and there's nothing wrong, by the way, with people that have made being social media influencers their business model. It's it's a job, and you know what, and they're doing great jobs, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the fact that we're having this interview wouldn't have occurred unless we went through this process on Clubhouse, and I just,
isn't it?
Yeah, find that. Anyway, we're moving on. We can edit that bit out of the podcast because it's a load of old nonsense. Nick Bradley, good morning to you, mate. How are you? And
hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, Dean. Man, I love
Nick.
that. That was.
Have we lost Nick? Where's he gone? The signal.
Can you hear me, guys?
There we go. We've got you back.
You're back.
Oh God, yeah. I've just jumped out the shower. Anyway, what I was saying was, Dean, you're one of the few people I can hear introduce themselves on this app, and I don't get sick of it. right? Because you are so humble and all the stuff you've done. I've got a question for you, mate. But it goes back to what you said about 20 minutes ago when you were talking about setting goals after that pretty full-on story with your upbringing. How do you kind of set a goal? I'm just curious about your perspective on this. How do you set a goal and then really stay focused on the execution, the implementation to make it happen?
So I think when I set those goals, I kind of religiously looked at them for 2 or 3 weeks, and to be honest, I'd forgot all about them. They reappeared when I got married, and my mum turned up with a box of my stuff. I don't know if she was just happy to see me go, but gave me my stuff, and in there was this list in a book of all these goals, and so I started going through and ticking them off and thinking, you know, they must have somewhere in my subconscious been there. I think when I write goals now, I write lots. I always put things down. I like to put goals in. I like these big, hairy, audacious goals. So I've got big goals in the future of the things that I would like to achieve, and I visualize what that might look like. And I think they change as you get older in terms of what you want to achieve. But I'm also a very goal set driven person. I suppose most people in Clubhouse will be. That I set my daily and weekly goals. I write my week out on a Sunday evening. I have things that I need to achieve every single day. I get entrepreneur's guilt if I don't do something. But I suppose something I haven't said, that in all of my offices, and it was my KPIs when I was first a recruitment consultant, I couldn't get, my team leader said to me, Dean, if you make this many calls and send this many CVs and do this, that, you'll get that many deals. And I said to him, Warwick, I said, well, how'd you get to that number? And he was like, well, that's the average. I said, well, I don't want to be average. What do I do? Well, and so this guy's a top biller, this lady's a top biller. So I went and sat with them and listened to them, and I couldn't really get myself motivated for KPIs. So I was on the Northern Line on the way home one night, and I thought, what 3 things can I measure myself by every day? And I was new to this sales world, and my dad had told me not to do it. He said, you're definitely not a salesperson. I rub that in his face quite often now. But I sat down and I wrote 3 things down. And the first was that I had to challenge myself every day. I had to do something that made me feel uncomfortable. And the second thing was I had to be better than I was yesterday. So I could have all the deals fall out in a day. And I'd book, I can't remember, Mrs. Grimes' Obscure Words or something. And I would learn a word I didn't know. So I was all about, you know, that compounding and making myself better. I knew I wasn't going to get there very quickly because this was all new knowledge to me. And the final thing, which I think's helped me the most, was go home proud. And what I meant to myself by that is, can I close the door and say I've done everything I can in that day to rescue that day or to make it the best day possible, because I don't want to take it home. And you inevitably still do. So if you went into any of my offices, this is up in many of my offices, it's a board in my office, all my staff know about it. In a lot of businesses I've worked with within my network, it must be 25 of them have got it on their reception. They've heard me talk about it. So I've got some, what I suppose people call soft measures, but I do have some hard goals, and COVID has knocked those. So I've had to readjust those and pivot. But yeah, I like to have short, medium, long-term goals. And I like to have my 3 rules that I test myself by every day. And as long as I can go home proud, I can sleep at night and I can feel comfortable. Hopefully that gives some insight, Nick.
Mate, it does. And what you described there at the end, I sort of correlated standards. You have standards that you set for yourself, which are high standards. Can I ask a follow-up very quickly, Paul?
Yeah, go for it, Nick.
What's hopefully you're comfortable sharing this, Dean. What's one goal that you have in the future that makes you feel very uncomfortable because it's so big and audacious that you're not quite sure how you're going to achieve it yet?
My biggest audacious goal is my social enterprise. So my business is that we save schools £100 million per year by 2024. And getting that out there, it's a hard one because it's a bit of a no-brainer when I talk to people. But the inaction of schools over the last year has been quite tough because they don't move like the private sector. You've got to get steering groups, and nobody really wants to sign anything off. Although we've got a few out there that are working really well. So for me, I want to get that into half the schools in the country, and I can quite easily then save them £100 million per year every year. And I suppose an added thing to that is that that platform also it removes, for want of a better word, unconscious bias. It blinds the recruitment process. So it's there to help diversity. It's there to help people from minority ethnic backgrounds to get on a level playing field. We also have algorithms that will neutralize the gender on the adverts and the way they're written, etc., so that we're giving everybody a chance. We've got a really lovely process. So I sit on a few panels because of that. So my biggest goal at the moment is to get that business to where it should be and start saving schools £100 million a year.
Awesome. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, guys. Thanks very
Cheers,
much.
Nick.
Just on that, Dean, very quickly, how do you save them the money? How does that work?
It's quite easy to save schools money because they spend it so badly. So it's an omni platform. So it does everything in terms of their workforce in one place, and they can manage all of their third-party suppliers, all their agencies. They can build their own talent pools, which saves them money. But we also do, and I spent a year working with the UCL Institute of Education, their Knowledge Labs, which is #1 in the world for ed tech, above Harvard and the rest of them. And we built out algorithms to match people to their environments. And the easiest way to explain this, if you and I sat together at school, Paul, and then we went to university and both got a 2-1 in maths, let's say, and I just want to work with highly receptive children who give back as much as I give to them, as I love my subject. You believe every child deserves a world-class outcome. So if you end up at Eton and I end up in a school near deprivation, we're going to hate it, but we're the same person on paper. So it's providing this profiling, it's this ongoing kind of behaviours that we find people who match, and we've done a lot of work behind that. And there's a white paper that we produced that we can increase retention between 30 and 40%. Schools don't, although you always read about schools having a recruitment issue, they do, but that's because they're 10 years behind the rest of the world in what they do, and it's so disjointed in how they do things. But their biggest issue is retention. 50% leave within 5 years, of starting. So they go, well, we'll put the salaries up at the beginning. Well, I don't know anybody who started on teacher training that didn't know what the starting salary was going to be. So it wasn't why they left. They left because the onboarding's rubbish, because they weren't matched to the school they were working with, because their mentor wasn't very good. And so we kind of clean that out a little bit. And then we've got a model where we're working with multi-academy trusts or a local education authority. Above a certain level, we pay money back into central services. So once the system starts, because we take the money from the third-party suppliers, it doesn't cost the schools anything. So we put the money back into central services. But there's various different measures you can use for the amount of social impact that money has. So that money goes back in, but on the premise that we can identify social mobility in those schools and the social impact that it has in the community. So it's kind of this virtuous cycle. It would have been very easy for me just to go straight back in and try and make some money and whatever else. And there's times I wish I hadn't gone back in, because it is quite a slow market in terms of people's understanding. The business acumen is obviously a lot lower, but it's just a passion. It's something I think needs to happen.
Wow, what a good cause. Sounds brilliant. Who do we have next? Let's get some people involved. Flash your microphones, please, as we're going down. I think people have moved around. Okay, we'll go Jeanette, Lucy, and then Anthea. Jeanette, go for it. And Susan as well. Jeanette.
Hey there, Dean. I'm loving hearing your story. It's really fantastic and so inspiring. So I've done lots of mergers and acquisitions myself over the years, both in the UK and international. I also work with private equity houses as well on various deals. So my question to you, Dean, is obviously you chose that route of IPOing, and you spoke really openly about your experience of that. So what I'm interested to hear from is, was that the only sort of option that you considered when you were looking to how do you raise finance and take the business to the next level? And what advice would you give to people having been through that yourself as to whether that is the best choice for businesses when they decide on the next step of financing and scaling up? So I'm Jeanette, and I'll pass it back, Dean, but great to hear from you.
Thanks, Jeanette. Great question. So I didn't do the IPO. It had already been done, and I was just acquired. My business was acquired by this acquisition vehicle. I delisted the business, and I went in and I forcefully become CEO. It wasn't a job application thing. I didn't enjoy it. At first, it was quite a nice title. You're running a PLC, and then you realise you've got all these rules and all these things that you need to abide by. That actually, in certain circumstances, especially in high sales growth companies, can slow them down. And then you're wheeled out to not do the job that for someone like me that I wanted to do, or where I could affect the most change. And you're answerable to your board on certain things, and everybody's worried about share price and whatever else. Where for me, I think actually when I changed my board, I was on the board, and I sat there one day and we'd had a board meeting, and I said, every single person on this board by myself is a trained accountant. And all we do is we count beans for what happened last month and, you know, the previous year. And we rarely really get into the business development side. We rarely get into the you know, significant changes, the invest to save, the stuff we can do with the business. And so I changed the board, and I've said before in Clubhouse, you know, if you can't change the people, change the people. And that's what I did. So I went through the whole business like that. I just went through this, removing directors. There were so many people who'd just been given jobs for friends because of all these different acquisitions. So whether it's the right thing for a business or not, I'm not 100% sure. Because if you're a very large business and you're going to float on a FTSE 250 or 100, the owners, the original owners, can do very well out of that. They can realize a lot of cash. And if you've got that kind of model, high growth model, where you can keep pushing your share price, then that's fine. I think that works really well. When you're on some of the junior markets and something goes wrong, your liquidity goes out the window, share price goes down. It doesn't matter what the share price is, but there's probably nobody to buy it out there. And you end up, you know, when we delisted, we ended up on a match bargain facility, which is kind of a bit like phoning up and saying, yeah, I'll sell for X. And they say, well, we'll find somebody to buy for Y. It is just a trading area, which is outside the market, which those forces drive obviously your prices. So delisting was a real pain. It took time. You know, the institutions weren't that happy with that, obviously, for obvious reasons, that had invested. But getting off the market was a good thing. It saved us a lot of money. You know, we were paying for a nomad and a nominated advisor, rather, and all those types of things. And I could concentrate on the business. And as soon as I did that, we built and built and built. And when we sold, actually, same as my first business in our sector, when we did the vendor DD and they looked at the market and whatever else, our profit-wise, in the previous 3 years, we've been the fastest growing in our market by far. And that was because I got to do the things that I wanted to do, get down and get into the business, you know, make sure I had some really core directors that I trusted. I brought somebody on to succession plans so that I could get out of the business, because my deal was that I would turn it around and I would do this and then I would leave, and we'd find someone else to replace me. But that didn't happen. Actually, I was going through an MBO, so I was going to buy the business out. Then I fell out with the private equity business. If anyone does a private equity deal, they promise you lots. We've been through the whole process. I didn't know these guys. And when we got to term sheet, which I really, you know, so you give me my term sheet, it's pie in the sky. I got these 11 kind of letter offers of what was going to be there, and some fancy dinners. But I took the deal to them, and they chipped me only by 2%. But I got up and I walked out, and that was, you know, and I've done that on deals before, because that's not a relationship I want to go into. So we had to do an MBI in the end, find someone to come in and whatever else. So it was a bit of a messy deal, but I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't enjoy it because it wasn't my business anymore. And I think maybe like the chap on yesterday, the Iceland MD, and his dad taking the business private again, it's such a better business, right? So for me, only in my personal experiences, I wouldn't want to run a PLC ever again. I wouldn't want to be in a corporate organization like that. It just doesn't suit me.
Thanks, Jeanette, for the question. Thanks, Dean. Lucy N.
Hello, yeah, thank you, Dean. God, I've got so many questions, but I'm just gonna stick to one and be good. I have obviously been watching your social media since we've all been on Clubhouse. By the way, folks, you must follow Dean on Instagram. Having less than 1,000 followers is not okay. We all need to go and push that button and follow. My question is, Dean, I've watched you boxing with your daughter in the gym shed that you've got in the garden. And I just love the confidence that she displays. And I think you've got 2 boys as well. And there's you, who you said, you know, you're a big kid in your house. What else do you do to really promote that confidence for your daughter? What can you see being the benefit for her growing up with, you know, three lads, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. So I probably, the boys say, oh, you favour her, but I spend more time with her, and purely because she's younger. My oldest is 20, and you know, he's got a girlfriend, so he's off and about quite often. My middle one is, you know, he's studying hard and he's into his sport. But my daughter Evie, she's she's very, very, very interested in business, and she just asks the most amazing questions. So I love having a conversation with her. And it might be that just from what I've seen, females are far more emotionally intelligent, far better at just having chit chat, far better, reading your state of mind and how you feel. But I do lots with her. I take her places. On Wednesday, we went in and we walked around London. We went to Selfridges. Every Christmas, we go into London. We stay in a hotel. Just myself and my daughter have done now. She's 15, have done for about 9 years. We go to the Wolseley for breakfast. We go and stay in a nice hotel. We go shopping only for her mum, although she gets stuff as well while we're out and about. And we just talk. And I'm always saying she's more concerned about exams and later life than my boys. They think they can just turn up, do an exam, and life's going to be all right. It's going to work itself out. She actually is concerned. So I do find, confidence-wise, I do a lot more work with her in just explaining to her that she can be anything she wants to be. And actually, her entrepreneurial mindset and the things she's done, and I mean, she actually made £1,000 because she wanted to buy an electric, looked like a Vespa moped to drive around. She wanted to buy this. It was about £500 or £600. And it wasn't birthday, it wasn't Christmas. So no, you can't have that. If you pay for it yourself, totally you're doing. Off she went. She started a business. She still sells jewelry online and does lots of other things. But she's got that about her. I don't know whether that she just picks that up. But my wife's quite entrepreneurial as well. She's got a little card business she's done. But I think children just absorb everything that's going around and in their environment, and they become a mongrel mix of their parents and their peers as well. And so I think to answer your question, I do lots of work with her in terms of getting her to understand business, but understand her true potential, because I think she can be absolutely amazing and be anything she wants to be. The boxing side of it is I give her confidence because, like me, both my boys are much bigger than me. My daughter's a shorty, but she's robust, right? So no one will give her any nonsense at school, boy or girl, because she's very confident, but she's also very feminine as well at the same time. And I just love that about her, that she's not outwardly confident, but if you push her, and I think that's where she's quite like me, that if you push her, she's coming back with something. And so, yeah, she's turning out fantastically well, and I've got an amazing relationship with her. And I love taking her on the pads. That was the first time I'd taken her on for about 6 months, because she's just so good. And she's talked about boxing. I'm not 100% sure whether I want to see my daughter punched in the face, but if that's what she wants to do, I'm quite happy for her to do that.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Lucienne. So just a very quick refresh. Make sure you give Dean a follow, actually. Click on Dean at the top and in the middle. Give Dean a follow. Go through, follow Dean on Instagram. Also follow the Winners Club. This is Breakfast with Winners. We've got Dean Kelly here in the studio with us, and we're speaking to you via the Winners Club, which is why the audio is not coming from Dean. But go and give Dean a follow in the middle. And if you want to watch the live studio feed of this, you can click on the Winners Club, go through to the bio link, and then there'll be a video for a button for live video, and you can view the live video.
Update on Dean's Insta, by the way, guys. Big news. Currently on 977 followers. We're only 23 off the 1K. Come on, people.
We're not going to let anyone leave. Yeah,
no one's
until
leaving till
Dean
1,000.
reaches 1,000. That's our target today. Dean's big audacious goal. Yeah,
21. 21 to go, Dean. We're getting there.
That's my new goal. Yeah.
Susan, you was flashing. Do you have a question? And then we're going to come to Anthea.
Hi guys, good morning. Yeah, I do. Thank you. Good morning, Dean. Dean, you for me on here are a real entrepreneur that I really actually admire. So because you walk the walk, you talk the talk, you've made lots of money, you're so humble, you've got 3 children like me, all as a result of how you brought them up are also, I would presume, humble entrepreneurs. And when you speak and I hear like the words that you use, and you've said before, like visualizing and your charts, I can't remember the name of the charts, but I'm going to look it up. You really kind of seems to me like I've always known what you want in life. So even when you had that interview, it was like I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out, but part of me feels like you always believed that you could, in like your soul or wherever, like deeply, you always knew you was going to succeed. So I'm kind of just interested, because if everyone knows, I'm so into law of attraction and how to manifest. How, when you have like an idea in your head, if it is like a new business idea or even like a personal life choice or like the charity work or like helping schools. How do you manifest that? Like, do you have the idea and instantly go for it, or do you sometimes procrastinate on an idea to see, you know, how things pan out? I would love to hear your steps in your mindset of what you do.
Thank you, Susan. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. I don't procrastinate. I don't like it. In my businesses, I actually ban. Nobody who works for me can use the word try. It doesn't happen. You either did or you didn't. And I'm quite black and white about certain things. And you're right. I suppose. And like many of you, and I've listened to you talk, Susan, and you've done phenomenally well. And again, somebody I think has got that inner confidence that you don't have to draw on all the time, but when you do, you know it's there, and you know that it's going to be something that's going to, you know, it's going to take you forward, is going to overcome whatever obstacle is in your way. And for me, all of my business decisions, we talk about purpose a lot, but I've always said the cocktail for success is purpose, passion, vision, and belief. So having a purpose and being involved in something that you really want to make a difference in, and that kind of ignites your passion. Having that vision, doing that visualization, understanding what it looks like, what you'll feel like, putting down those end goals, you know, putting down that audacious goal, and then working it backwards to understand the steps that you need to take and kind of keep yourself on track when you do go off a little bit. And the last one is belief, as you said. I think maybe that was given to me by my parents, that they would always say, you know, you can do whatever. They were the pushers to send me to a really good school rather than the local comprehensive. My parents wouldn't have known, you know, to say these are the kind of careers you could have, but they did everything in their power to make sure that I got opportunity. And I think also in that kind of the laws of attraction, my dad doing the job he did and whatever else, I've been in some phenomenal places in London, some houses and whatever else, and used to change the fluorescent lights in offices at the weekends, and I was just in awe of the city. I was in awe of these huge houses as well, and these people. And I remember being in one in Belgravia, and I met the owner's son, who was about 14, about the same age as me, and he was showing me his camera that he'd got for his birthday. I was like, what else did you get? I mean, I was downstairs in their underground car park, disco, bar area. I mean, it had lifts in the house. It's huge. I mean, absolutely, probably something that's worth 50, 60 million pounds today. He's like, no, that's all I got. And I was like, what, really? You got all this money and that's all you got? Yeah. And he wasn't being sport. And when I sat down and we had a Coca-Cola and we was chatting away, I was thinking, he's no different from me. You know, he's just got that different background. And I think all those little kind of things you've seen the other side of the fence, the school and whatever else, build up this kind of incrementally, these little building blocks that you can be something better than you are today. And I strongly believe anybody can be whatever they want. They've just got to have that purpose, passion, the vision of where they want to get to, and that belief. Because if you don't have vision, you're kind of a little bit aimless in where you're heading. You can have I've met lots of people with loads of belief, but unless you've got an aim, you've got a path to go on, you kind of are wasting a lot of energy as well. So yeah, I think I've always had a belief. It's got to come from my parents, and that's all I want to instill in my children, that whatever they do, as long as they try and be the best they can be. Because, you know, going back to sport and other things, if you look back on life, and I think you get this a little bit more when you're older, and you think, what if I'd just done? What if that's the worst feeling in the world. I like to know I've left it out there. I've left 100% out there. And if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. So I don't procrastinate. I go and make decisions quite quickly. I make sure that I make informed decisions. The decisions I've made in the past on other people's advice have cost me dearly in terms of a lot of cash. But now I often say to people, I research little and often. Some people, if you over research it, it's a bit like when you think about going to the gym too much at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you think about it too much, you'll talk yourself out of it, because there's always a reason not to do it. So just look at the positives and think to yourself, can I make that happen? And if you can, then give it a go, because actually the best thing in life is to give it a go and try.
Brilliant. Dean, how long have we got? I know you've got a board meeting to get to, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm fine for a bit. So
okay,
you let me know. So
right, okay. Anthea, you was flashing your mic.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Dean, and thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing your story. I do appreciate it. I love the fact that you've invested in education by looking at the retention of teachers as well. I think that's really important. And I didn't actually realize you were the force behind the spread of GEM School in the Middle East. So that was really interesting for me. The world is getting smaller and all cultures are celebrated and experienced by many now. And my question is, do you have any influence in shaping recruiting policies and procedures that implement diversity and equality for teachers nationally and nationally? Because I'm noticing that BAME teachers nationally and internationally aren't that very well represented, and when they are in those positions, not treated very well. So I just wanted to know what your influence is, if you had any, on changing that. Thank you so much. My name's Anthea.
Thank you, Anthea. So it's a question close to me and close to my platform in what we do. Do I have the influence at government level? Probably not. I have been on calls with Gavin Williamson and listened to some of the tosh he says. I understand it, you know, which is, you know, this is very true, and I don't mind saying I've been on teams with him and 5 or 6 other people. And I think they're a bit clueless and aimless at the Department for Education, and they have been for many years. They're doing things they've done over and over again for 20 years and just spending lots of money. But on the other side of that, I'm a partner with a organisation called Fig Tree International, and that's run by a woman called Anne Palmer, who's an ex-head teacher from a school in London. Actually, she's done a few executive head roles, and she runs the race charter for Multi Academy Trust. So I got involved in that a little while ago. I've been on various panels with Anne. I'm on one in May sometime. I can't remember the date, but it's on my LinkedIn, where we'll be discussing over 3 stages on this panel: recruitment and retention, and what's the solutions for the future. So I am involved in that, and I didn't. It kind of just happened. Because of what I was trying to achieve. I'm all about fairness in my life. I always have been. I hate people being bullied. I hate injustice. I hate all those types of things. So I try and stay off Twitter because I rant all the time, and that's not great for business because there's a lot of people who might not share my opinions. But it's the same in life in general. And if I can affect a positive change in that way and make it fair for everybody, in terms of what they do and how they get somewhere, and just to add a bit to that, many years ago, I was invited to the House of Lords by Dame Shirley Conran. There you go. I'm dropping names. I'll pick them up in a minute. And it was for a release of a paper called The Fear Factor, and it was about essentially why girls don't like maths or why they're no good at maths. And it was written by a lady called Dr. Samantha Callan. And I was one of, I think, 7 males in this room of about 50 people. And there was, you know, all these women from big organizations. It was CEOs, and it was multicultural and whatever else. And the big theme that come across for me, which was something I hadn't really thought about in conversations I had, was that none of them wanted, essentially, I think board quotas are a bit different, but nobody wanted to get their job because of their gender or their race, purely because they would feel undermined on a daily basis because they got there because of how good they were. And that really hit home with me. The only difficulty with that is what we try and help is those who go up the ladder and then kick the ladder away, because they like being in that position of authority. So we are doing lots of work in those areas. I'm a voice, and I'm a very critical voice. I'm quite direct compared to those who are in the actual education space. They do say stuff, but I will rant a little bit more. So I think we will make positive change. I don't know about internationally just yet. It is difficult, and you know, you talk about working with GEMS. GEMS was great with their schools, but I also got the opportunity, because I had a medical recruitment company, to work with some hospitals out there, and I met with a director from HR, and they gave me a list of the kind of roles they look for, and can you get these? And I said, what's this part? Well, it was an ethnicity chart, and I think they were like, right, okay, well, Americans are the most expensive, then the UK, and the Emiratis like to be treated by white doctors. And I was like, and I pushed it back. I said, I can't work on that basis. This isn't for me. It doesn't matter how much work is here. I can't do it. So we didn't do anything. I didn't do any work with them at all. So I think the UK is in a very different position from a lot of the world. And it's very different in London than it is in other parts of the country, especially up north. But we're doing what we can, and we're making as many ripples in this and as much noise as possible. And with my platform, it kind of takes away, for me, it takes away them just ticking boxes by creating policies. I work with lots of diversity and inclusion managers in Multi-Academy Trust. We're putting together proposals. And I want to get schools, especially state schools in this country, I want to get them past the kind of, yeah, we do something, we tick a box and we virtue, but actually the inertia is so difficult to break. They just do what they did before, which is got to be 90% of the schools in the country. But yeah, so I'm not the voice that I want to be just yet, but I will get there. And I'm working with some brilliant people as well. So if you want to follow Anne Palmer on LinkedIn, Fig Tree International, you'll see some of the headway she's making. She's doing phenomenal work.
Thank you very much, and I would love to speak with you as well. My name's Anthea Davidson Jarrett, and that's what I do. I'm an educational consultant, and my story is interesting, so I would love to have a conversation with you, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Just as I say, slip into my DMs and we'll set up a call.
Thank you.
No, they say slide, not slip.
Right.
Slip sounds really even
Right,
weirder.
Excuse us, people in the audience, if you're listening to this. Dean, we've had a message come in from Chris Neal. Worked for Dean for 7 years, 7 great years it was. Still work with him now, and he supports me when needed. Double thumbs up.
Yeah, Chris is a great guy. Yeah, he worked for me. I always got a story about Chris. Chris, when it snowed, there's very few people who made it in. And Chris came in and his trousers were soaked and his Gucci loafers were wet and whatever else. And I was like, it was about an hour and a half late. He said, "You don't know how long it took me to get here." I said, "Yeah, I did. You're an hour and a half late." And he was sitting there and I could see he walked through snow and everything. But yeah, no matter what the weather or anything else, he was there with bells on. So I got a lot of respect for him. He's got a great little business as well.
Brilliant. We're going to go to Anna, because unless she's got her mute buttons broken, it's just constantly flashing. So Anna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Hi. Do you have a question?
Greetings. Yes. Greetings from Los Angeles, California, where it's 1 a.m. in the morning. I wanted to thank you and Ashley for this incredible conversation. And Dean, wow, you've done so much, and I love your heart. In particular, given your work to help improve social mobility and inclusion. This is something very close to my heart, given that I personally grew up in orphanages in war-torn Lebanon and came to the US with $160 alone as a young teen to pursue my American dream. And I've dedicated my life to helping over 140,000 young people, minorities, underserved kids, exactly to help them improve their own social mobility. And my goal is to work next on 1 billion worldwide to help young people achieve their biggest dreams. So my questions to you are these. 1, what drives you? 2nd, will AI help improve or hinder social mobility and inclusion? And if you believe so, what do you think will need to be done to prevent that in the next 10 years? As we know, AI is going to be pervasive throughout our economy worldwide. Thank you. I'm Anna, and I'm complete.
Anna, thank you very much for that question and for your amazing backstory as well. Just injustice, or I suppose wrongdoing, is what drives me, and that things, again, going back to something I said earlier about my wife saying, I think things can always be better. Some people go, "That's great," and I was like, no, we can improve on that. And I want to get somewhere where everything's fair. I don't like the involvement of big government, which is becoming bigger. I'm not a fan of that. I think that there's a lot of disruption that's caused on purpose because it wins votes or gives direction or whatever else. And I would prefer that society in itself was a little bit fairer and more flat. And that's kind of what I'm working towards. I mean, the reason I've gone down the tech space and built a platform, I'd kind of done this without tech before, because in my bio on LinkedIn, you'll see that I actually helped start and chair a charity for 16 to 24-year-olds, not in education, employment or training. And I had such big plans. I raised nearly £500,000 from all the recruitment businesses that I'm involved with. We funded it. We had this phenomenal CEO who brought this idea to me. And then we just watched all the money get absorbed in all this rubbish that goes on with charities, and actually didn't get down to the children. And that when I started, they'd asked me to do it over a period of months. And I said, look, the only way I will do this if the money goes down to those it's help. I did it for free. I put money in myself. I'd worked with, for anybody in the UK, with kids company, seen what a mess it was. Bernardo's, I had a children's services company. I did the mock inspection on Baby P, child deaths in Doncaster and Birmingham. And I actually lost a lot of money for my business because I decided to whistleblow, and I went to Portcullis House, met with some MPs, ended up sitting on a select committee and saying what I'd seen, even though I signed an NDA, because it helps me sleep at night. AI, I think AI will get there in the end, but AI, like any tech, can change perception. It can get people to think a certain way if the people behind it want them to think a certain way, and that nudge effect that the behavioral scientists work with to get you feeling like you got there of your own accord, but you've just been nudged. And for AI to really work, you need lots and lots and lots of rich data. You need to make sure that that's unbiased data. So we're doing our best in my platform to build that, and not to say it's exact either, that 100% you are this. We like to give percentages in terms of environments and social fit and behaviors, but we're not out there saying it's 100% or it's one way or the other. We want people to feel that they're making an informed decision on all the information at hand, because they still have to make that decision. So it's going to be helpful. We can do lots of stuff in weighting backgrounds, you know, for people who've been to top private schools and top universities versus those who might have come from a couple of generations of worklessness and had to take their brother and sister to school in the morning, went to a local comp that wasn't very good, and then went to college and in university, because they might have more capacity as an individual than those taught to the top of their game. So we can do some of that in the back, but we're still building out that data. We're still taking all those rich data sources from all of the inputs and just testing all the time what it's predicting, what it's giving us. So I think it will get there in the future. Everybody says they've got AI. I'm quite open that, you know, we're at the start of that, because you do need a huge amount of data to be accurate. So I'm fingers crossed that we get there over the next few years, and it gives people a real insight into what's going to work for them. Because you can get a job somewhere as from any background, but if it's the wrong place, it's still going to be an awful experience. And we want to get rid of that as well. So it's not just, you know, supporting those people in, but getting them in the right place so that they can perform at their best, so they can be the happiest, because happy people are retained people as well. So hopefully that answers some of your question there on the AI.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dean. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm complete. I'll DM you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. So breaking news, we've got Dean to 4K followers on Clubhouse,
Get in there.
which is good.
That's not the big. What's happening on the other channel though?
We're 9 away on Instagram.
Oh, come on, people.
9 away. So,
Come on.
Can you follow me twice?
yeah, well,
I'm going to unfollow you and follow you back. Can we follow? Have we got IG on this?
that might be a follow on there, the Winners Club.
I'm going to buy some bots. I don't care. I know you shouldn't do it in social media, but I'm going to buy 9 bots.
Come on, 9 people need to follow Dean just to show your appreciation for Dean giving us his time here. He's got an important board meeting to get to. We're not letting him go until he reaches 1,000.
5 more.
5 more. 5 more.
I don't follow him from my ultimate podcast group. Here you go.
3.
I want to be 1,000. I'm number 1,000. What do I win?
We're just hit 1,000. So well done, people. Thank you for that. That's your payment for this interview, Dean. 1,000 followers on Instagram.
That was cheap, wasn't it?
Do I get blue ticks now?
Yeah.
Is this how
That's a different conversation.
Is it? Right.
No, but what you will get is loads of people sending you messages telling you that they can get you a blue tick.
Yeah, I do. get
Don't
lots
let
of
them
those.
slip in your DMs
I've
too far.
actually had some funny videos. I had a lady from America sent me a video of her dancing in a bikini. Wanted to get, and I thought that was really interesting. I was looking at it for about 4 seconds, thought, delete. My wife might be coming into the room. But yeah, so that's been my most interesting message so far.
Right. Okay. We
Quick,
still got a
move on
little bit of
fast.
Dean's time. So flash your microphones, please, if you've got a question for Dean. Beiju, I'm going to come back to you. Are you out of that nightclub?
I'm here. I'm back home.
There we go. Beiju, go for it.
Thanks, mate. Dean, top work, man. I really enjoyed the conversation this morning. You've alluded it in this conversation. You've spoken about it in different rooms before about your position and opinion about the government's reaction to the last 18 months of what's going on. Just want to get your take on the reaction and the impact on not just business and entrepreneurship, but just the wider scope of what it is, because I know you sort of got more insight than most. Just what you can say. What's your opinion about where we are now with it? What could have been done, and what to expect over the next 18 months as a result of the government's actions?
Yeah, cheers, Beiju. nothing
like a deep question, is it?
Yeah, I'll just pick up that hand grenade. Yeah, look, I'm extremely opinionated on this and have been right since the beginning. I think when a government spends 70% of all the advertising spend that was spent in the UK last year, that's propaganda. That isn't helpful advice. Yeah, look, there is obviously a virus about, and it is hitting a lot of people in certain age groups and demographics and whatever else, and that's not great. But I think we're being scared witless by what's going on, and there are, for anybody, I don't want to get into it all, but for anybody who really looks into it, and I think most people don't research it, and I was as scared as everybody else in March. You got a family, worried, what's going on. I think by the end of April, I'd read more scientific papers than I thought I could ever digest and read. Going back 40 years in immunology, I know an endocrinologist. I interviewed a guy called Michael Yeadon, who's the ex-head of virology for Pfizer. He's been since branded a bit of a nutter, but I can see why, because he's a danger to them. And they might not all be 100% right, but I think there's a lot of stuff that's gone on. Sage doesn't have an immunologist, a virologist, an epidemiologist there, and they're the people who can make decisions. We're led by a pharmacologist. That's the longest words I know. So I have great concerns. I have great concerns of what Boris said the other day about lockdowns work, and they're always talking up the vaccine, now talking it down. But you can look at any of the science, and lockdowns always happened after the peak, so it kind of rode the wave of things going down. For me, they kill more, because the easiest measure to see a lower death age is poverty and extreme poverty. And I read the other day that 149 million people have been pushed into extreme poverty. Now their lives will end earlier, right? And they can end a lot earlier, and their children's lives may end a lot earlier as well. And I think the collateral damage from that is not worth all the successes. And I do praise everybody for pivoting and doing whatever, but any success that I've had during that period, I would give back for that. And that's how I feel about it. And I think outside of the bigger picture and lockdowns and what it's done, and everyone feels all right, because those who can pivot and go online and whatever else is great. But there is 2/3 of businesses actually done better last year than they did previously, which is great, right? But then there's been a lot of support from the government, and there's no free lunches here. We will pay this back over a period of time, and those successful people will pay more in tax and whatever else. And if that's what brings it back up and corrects it, then that's fine. But I think for me, the biggest travesty in the whole thing has been what's happened to children. Not seeing their friends, that's bad for the immune system anyway. We swim in a sea of viruses. That's how your immune system gets stronger. Schools being closed. I read a report, Swedish schools have made zero progress in a year. Now, when you only get a certain amount of learning, when your brain is that responsive, that's a real, that's a real kickback in terms of your educational and social mobility, your outcomes in life, and just generally scaring children into wearing masks when there's literally pre-2020, there's no scientific evidence that masks will stop a virus, right? Or double masks or treble masks or whatever else.
Especially not the ones you buy from a petrol station for 10 quid for 50 of them. Yeah. There's no way that's going to stop a virus, is there?
No, and people are wearing all sorts of things covering their faces that don't stop anything, and it's only ever been shown that it works in a very sterile environment. And if they did work, look, we wouldn't have had deaths in care homes and hospitals and whatever else. So there's many control factors, and I speak from, as I mentioned before, for someone who's worked with behavioural scientists. Right? I understand how mixed up these individuals are about their opinions and about how much they want to control things. They want to test whether or not they can get you to believe something, and fear is the biggest driver of anything. We all fear things, and they are just playing on that all the time, and they're corralling us into, and then they're passing laws, and you've got the police have got more power, so you can't demonstrate. And when you look at it, people go, oh, I think the worst thing about Britain maybe is that everyone says, no, it wouldn't happen here. Wouldn't happen here. It's happened. Right? And I think that's when you sit down and if you go through the laws that have been changed and the liberties they can take away from you and the amount of power this government has, and the fact that they've supported so many people with furlough and all the business loans and everything else, what does that mean? Oh, is that great? Yes, fantastic, right? It's put off the pain for a little bit of time. But also you're going to have all these businesses fail. You're going to have all these people out of work. You're going to have generational unemployment. You're going to have children that really just didn't get the education that they deserve. And then you're going to get a bunch of people that are more dependent on the government than they were before. And for me, that's just big government becoming bigger. And you can go back through history and you know, any temporary actions that were brought in, any temporary taxes that were ever put upon a country become permanent very quickly. Right? They don't really remove them or whatever else. So I don't want to get into what I think the end game is or whatever else, but I think lockdowns will find, and that's why there's no impact assessment anywhere. And that's actually where the science is coming out for those states in America and those countries that didn't have lockdown. You know, they're faring better, and economically they're definitely faring better. And in deaths they're much, right? You know, I think humans have got above themselves, above their station. They think they can control climate, they think they can control viruses, and nature is a lot more powerful than we think. So that would be my thing. We can't run around life being scared, and I can't do that personally, as you heard in my story. So maybe that's why I'm so outspoken about it. But yeah, we've got to turn our attention to the children. I mean, just final point on that. Someone said to me the other day, the government's response was very much like a lot of terrorists phoned up and said, right, we're going to kill all the old people, all the ill people. We're going to go and get them. We're going to go and get them over the next few months. And the government said, we need to act. So they sent the police to the playgrounds and they told them to lock up the kids. And nobody protected the people in the old people's homes, in the care homes, and nobody really went and protected the hospitals properly. And that's the travesty. It was almost like they left the gate open and let this thing do what it wanted to do in the areas with the most vulnerable. And that, for me, I think is wrong. And plus, you know, there's lots of other stuff coming out about treatments that would have reduced hospitalizations by 85% for drugs that are worth pennies. But the big pharmas can't make any money out of them. So hopefully if we go into another, you know, not wave or new virus or whatever else, they act properly next time and they do treat people, because where else would you go to a doctor and get a positive test for something and their only bit of advice is go home for 10 days, right? not here's a leaflet, why don't you try this, why don't you do this? And because they know there's 3 drugs, that's how Trump got back up on his feet in 2 days, but they know there's 3 drugs that cut these by 85%. If you cut by 85% into hospital, you're going to cut deaths by at least 85%. And then you're back into kind of, you know, very low flu realms. It's, for me, there's too much there that says they let it happen because it suits a purpose. I'm not 100% sure what that is just yet, but yeah, basically they are probably let that grenade really explode. But
and if you're listening from the UK government and you're in this room, it's just the opinions being shared here.
Well, no. There's nothing you said there that's not, you know, not a sensible argument. You know, so. Yeah, no, that's the reason I wanted to ask the question, because I've heard you before talk about this. And it's very balanced. It's not sort of, you know, scaremongering. It's just very balanced, and you're asking great questions. So yeah, thank you.
Cheers, Beji. And just I do talk from a little bit. I've been on calls with Matt Hancock as well, and the one thing people go, oh, they must be stressed and whatever else. They're not. They think they are the hero of this story, this horror story that they want to create a sequel to, and that, for me, just seeing that. And, you know, that kind of narcissistic nature of I've saved this, and it's cool again with 12 people and teams, and I'm in these inner groups, and I don't mind speaking about it because they want to kick me out, they can kick me out. Because again, personally, I can't just keep those types of things to myself. If I think it's wrong, and I, you know, I might turn out to be wrong, I don't know, but from where I sit and the information and knowledge I have, I don't think I am. And if I see BS, I'm going to call it, and I think I am.
I think it will all unravel over the years, won't it?
Yeah,
it will all come true.
Shotgun not walking Dean back to his car when he turns it on, just in case. I'm just saying I'm busy when he goes to his car.
Let's take a last couple of questions very quickly. We've got
we give a shout out to our international viewers and listeners, actually.
Ying, I see you flashing, so I'm going to come to you next. We've got someone from Somalia that's listening. So we've got Willow watching in from Somalia via Facebook. We've also got Rob, Safari Rob, who is listening in his safari lodge in Muan in Botswana. Rob's a regular on the show, and he's I believe he's been kicked out of the app or couldn't get back in the app, so he's watching via the live stream from Botswana. So we're international this morning. Thank you for everybody being here as normal. Ying, you was flashing.
Yeah, thanks, gents. And yeah, absolutely international. Thanks, Paul, Ash, James, for putting this on. And great to be the other side of the fence for once with you, Dean. I've never met Dean before, but I absolutely see him as a friend. Great guy. We've made investment together and we've shared many of a laugh, and that shows the power of Clubhouse. Listen, Dean, I'd love to ask you this question, mate. If you had continued your promising career as a boxer, how different do you think your life would have been to what it is today?
I suppose my career wasn't that promising as a boxer. Every time I stepped up for a decent title, I was pretty good as a junior. But then I got picked up by Chelsea, so I stopped boxing and kind of went back. And I had a car crash which bust my jaw during it, and so my career was a bit intermittent. I just enjoyed it, and actually for boxing, I kind of. It was a saviour for a point in my life as well. I know you know this, Ying, because I've mentioned it on a room before. I was the second person in Britain to be treated for overtraining syndrome. And that's just training too much. And I did 13 times a week for 3 years, and I walked around at under 5% body fat. And you think that's great, but it actually has a real damaging effect on your body. And I was just trying to cut, because I'm short and stocky, but I was trying to come down in weight because all these really tall people I was boxing were just jabbing my head off. And that's probably why I got a big forehead. But football was probably where I looked like I was going to go. I liked boxing. My dad liked football. He's still a big football fan, although he boxed himself. And when I was with Chelsea, I think, yes, I'd have loved to have been a professional footballer. That's got to be the one of it's like professional golfer, footballer, and tennis player. As you know, they're great because they're sports where you can get around nice places and get a lot of fame for it and a lot of money. And I would have loved to have played professional football. I think I realised, for anybody who's a Chelsea fan, this was ages ago, so when John Hollins was there, and the pitch was sand. I mean, it was the worst pitch. I played on better park pitches than Stamford Bridge at the time. But people like Jody Morris were there. I realised I wasn't that. I was a big fish in a little pond when I was playing in my area, and I went there, and I don't think I had the confidence that some of those children had at the time, or those young adults had at the time. They really believed this was their life. Their parents believed this was their life. They were football bonkers. Whereas I loved football, but my dad was football bonkers. I wasn't. And so it would have been absolutely, I've got, my dad still shows pictures to my children of me signing autographs when I won the Bobby Moore Soccer School and all these types of things. But it just wasn't to be. I just, looking back, I can quite fairly say I wasn't good enough at either. I enjoyed them. I probably did to the best of my ability, and that's cool. But it wasn't meant to be for me. But I would, look, if I could go and be a pro footballer, or I don't know if I would necessarily want to be a top end boxer. You've got to be, for anybody who knows boxers, and obviously we have Billy Schwer on things as well, and I've got to know Billy. And I first met Billy when I was sparring with a guy called Spencer Oliver down in Finchley when I was finishing boxing, and I was being treated for overtraining. And Billy was there. I think he might have been European champion at the time. And they were relatively doing quite well financially. But for those who aren't involved in the sport, think that they're multi-millionaires. They're not. Yes, the Pacquiaos and the Mayweathers and those at the top and the big heavyweights can make some serious cash. But if you're just boxing at British and European level, you're going to get to a certain age, you retire, you've got nothing. That's why in the old days, they open a pub, they become alcoholics, and then you never heard of them again. So it's a really, really tough life. And I don't think it gets the respect at the lower levels that it's due, how much effort they've got to put in just to make it happen. And you've always got these armchair people, haven't you? They go, oh, throw more jabs and that as they bite their burger. And they don't realise, I've got respect for someone who even steps in a ring and spars. Right, because you test your own mettle. You don't have to want to box or fight or whatever else, but you get in and do that. I think it's a very good thing. So I've always loved that about boxing, and I love being around, boxers, and they've got so many amazing stories. But yeah, definitely, if I could have been a pro footballer, unlike you, Ying, I've never played at Anfield. So I've been a Liverpool fan as well. That's a bit of a dream. For those who don't know, Ying actually played at Anfield and had a Gerrard moment, which I think you scuffed, didn't you?
You're supposed to stop at the Gerrard moment.
I was about to say, you built him up and then knocked him down at the same time there.
I thought you was going to say a Gerrard moment and scored a wonderful goal.
I've seen the picture in his book. He's got a fantastic book, by the way. But yeah, he's just about to take a shot, and I didn't know he scuffed it until he told me he scuffed it.
Right, guys, we got
to leave the room now.
Thanks, Ying. We've got time for one more. Let's take one more. Flash your microphones if you've got something to. Michaela.
Hello. Hi. As always, Dean, nodding my tiny head off whilst listening to everything you've got to say. So, yeah, thanks for doing this, Ash, Paul, James. It's been wonderful. 2 questions.
Dean. Number one, if you was going to start a business tomorrow, what would that be? And number two, next time you're going to invest in something, can you please tell me, because I really just want to copy everything that you do.
I looked at Dean's face.
The eToro world for business. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, I'd like to invest in a construction business that's not turning over the 100 million it should do. A private joke. Michaela was talking about something she can do with a business, but I don't know. I mean, God, since being on Clubhouse, all I want is passive income. I want a million flats somewhere, and a load of people paying me money with no headache whatsoever. I don't know. I enjoy investing in other people's businesses where I can affect change. I've got a business that I invested in for brilliant entrepreneur called Steve Beckett, and he's got a business called Sourcebreaker. I invested. Steve came to me. It's a recruitment rec tech business, and he came to me and he had a spreadsheet. And it didn't really tell me much. And we had a look at that and we sat down, and I'd never met him before. And then we met again, and I just bought into him, and I was one of his original investors. We've been diluted down quite a bit over the years, but that business, I don't know. It sits around the 50 to 60 million mark on valuation at the moment. So whether that continues and we get out and make a very tidy profit, that'd be amazing. But I like it because I've been his advisor and his board member since day one, and I've watched it grow. I've done everything I can to help that business grow and help him grow as well. So it's not just that I sit on the boards, I speak to him on a regular basis, and all the other businesses that I work with as well. And I've realized I'm of that age now as well, where I get a lot of pleasure, and I always have. I've got a lot of pleasure out of other people doing well. And a few of the businesses I work with have done phenomenally well over the last couple of years. One was on a precipice of going under, and I started doing a bit of advisory for them. They're now in profit and making money and hiring and looking really good. And I enjoy that challenge. And so I don't know whether I've got a defined market. I've lost money in things I don't know. If I want to put a bit more flavor on that, I lost a lot of money with UBS and hedge funds and some other rubbish things they put me into. When I initially sold a company, I thought, well, UBS, they've got to make me loads of money. They're a big bank. And then the crash happened and they were rubbish. So money has an energy. So it has a value in terms of what it can bring for you. If you had a load of cash in front of you and you couldn't spend it, it's useless. So it's putting that energy to good use and making sure that you're getting, to use a term I've just seen on Clubhouse really, since I didn't know who Grant Cardone was until I was on Clubhouse. At 10x your money, if you're going to put £1 in, you want at least 10 back. So, I would invest in people now. I would invest in businesses that I feel that I can add some value to, that I like the entrepreneur. There's someone I can work with. I believe that they've got that passion, purpose, vision, and belief in themselves. And if I happen to be 100 flats with a load of passive income, I might even be happier. Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, the business I'm involved in at the moment, I think are cracking businesses. I have lots of people tapping me up. I don't always get time to get back to them on, when we talk in our rooms about investment and stuff. But for anybody who does want to tap me up, it's got to be something that I can add value to, because otherwise I'm just not interested.
Also, please nobody bother getting in touch with Dean, because I believe all of his capital is now going to be taken up by a slightly strange franchise offering of mini podcast studios for Clubhouse that is going to be dotted around London now, of which we've got a presentation to show him after.
Different headquarters.
Yeah.
Guys, I've got one more question for Dean before we go and close up. So I know we're going to come to an end soon. Legacy is a big word, Dean, and people that often go through that journey of building a business, selling a business, the word legacy comes up. What do you want your legacy to be?
God, I've got no, until I was on Clubhouse, I've got no passion to be famous in any way, shape, or form. I want my legacy to be that, when I read my eulogy out, that I grasped every moment and I tried to do the best, not just by my businesses and whatever else, but by everybody I met. I like the kind of way that I've been described by people who've worked for me, who've contacted me afterwards. I've met people that have gone off and started their own businesses, and they're always like, you're firm, you're fair, but you never lie. And that I like the fact that I will call it as I see it. And I want my legacy to be that I did that. I was, and I always, if people say rate yourself, and I know you're the same, Paul, but I'm a father, a husband, probably a fitness fanatic after that, and then a business person after that. And And they're all entwined, they're all in one. And I want people to see that I didn't sacrifice one over the other. I know, again, lots of wealthy people that have got to an age where, to me, they're almost lonely, and they're estranged from their children, or they don't have that relationship. My son's 20, he'll still give me a big hug, and I want him to hug me when he's 30, 40 and 50. And the same with all my children. So I've got no passion to be up in lights of any kind. I just want to be known as anybody who mentions my name, if they've ever worked with me, come across me, or I've been around them, that I've had a positive impact on their life. Because I think I get, definitely now, I get the most back from that in life. You know, when you're first starting out, I've got to make some money, and everyone says, oh, you got to have purpose and it can't be money. But you are driven by that when you've got no money. You know, you've got to make money to make money, to give yourself that freedom, and totally, money only gives you choices. It's Bahamas or Butlins for those in the UK. I don't know what it is over in the States, but it's those choices. And I want to make sure that people see me as not as arrogant, not as up myself, but somebody who definitely had, even if it's 1%, had a positive effect on their life. I suppose that's a long-winded way of saying just want to help people.
Dean, look, thank you very much. We've been going now for an hour and 47 minutes. We've got you to your over 1,000 followers on Instagram and 4,000 on Clubhouse. So you've made it, you legend. And thank you very much for giving us your time. You know, we're all giving our time here for free. As you've seen, just a couple of hours of pure value. No one's selling anything. We're just bringing value to the community here in the Clubhouse room. We got some really good stuff coming up to tell you about tomorrow. We've got Liza. Is she still here? No, she's not. Just looking down. Liza with 2 Z's is taking. You're there. You're taking the show for us tomorrow morning, aren't you? From 7 o'clock.
I'm excited.
So yeah, Liza with 2 Z's is hosting the show in the morning. Beju is also hosting the show tomorrow. We've got more live shows again. Live show again next Friday. Some good interviews. We got Sir Timothy Smith, who founded the Eden Project, coming up as well as a guest. We've got Ash Ali, who was the marketing director for Just Eat when they went through their IPO. So that will be a good marketing chat as well. So loads of great guests coming up here. And as they say on Clubhouse, I'm done. James or Ashley, you can say something.
Yeah, as I say, I'm gonna love you and leave you all. So I want to say, firstly, thank you, Dean. Thank you for coming down, Dean. I've got to say, I love your motor as you pulled into the gate.
I'm not going near it after his opinions on the government. More for you. I'll get a cab.
It is bomb-proof.
Yeah, just to put this in context, people, Dean didn't pull up in a Ford Fiesta, by the way. So yeah, we will just leave it at that. But it wasn't a Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. What a great show, and again, just another beautiful example of why Clubhouse still is the powerful platform that it is. Like I say, just non-stop hour and 47 minutes worth of acumen, insight, business lessons. Where else in the world would you be able to get time with the guy who has done so much? This has been Scale Up, IPO, and back again, because I just thought it sounded quite dramatic, but Dean's probably a bit too humble to take that dramatic title, but that's what it's been. Cheers for your ears as always. Thank you everybody for listening. We will be back again tomorrow morning at what time do we start on a Saturday?
We start at 7 to allow people to have a little lay in. We start around 1:45 just to give people that extra 15 minutes of a weekend. As I try to be kind, but sometimes I'll surprise you when I am up early, out of bed, rocking and rolling at 5 in the morning. I think, no, I've got to open early. But we do allow a little lay-in for the community. So, yeah, I want to say, yeah, have a brilliant day, have a brilliant weekend, and we have some good stuff in store for you all. And Dean, once again, make sure you go and show the Clubhouse currency and go give Dean a follow on Instagram. Go give him a follow here. Put the bell notification on so when he is speaking in other rooms that you can be notified when he is there. But has anyone got any final words for Dean as we wrap up today?
Just thank you for being humble, for being real, for being passionate, for just, keeping it real, even though you've made it. Thank you.
Lovely. Can we all say goodbye and say thank you to Dean?
Yeah, thank you, Dean.
Cheers, guys. Cheers. No, it's been a pleasure.
Flash of those mics, mods, and speakers as we leave. Cheers for your ears as always. We'll see you back here tomorrow. This has been a Winners Club production. I can't help myself. Let's rock and roll. Oh, somebody hit the end of the room button. Oh, we've ruined it. Come on, guys, quick. I'll play the music again. Nah, just press the in button. The wheels are falling off.